yard ready.
I'm waiting for those crocus and tulips to start.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the planning board meeting of March 26, 2014. Tonight, we have Tilly Evangelista, myself, I'm Harry Locatilia, Mr. Robert Watts, and I would like to take this opportunity to welcome our newest member on the board, Mr. Rob Hoover. Everybody say hi to Rob.
Hi.
Hi, Rob.
Welcome.
Without any further ado, of course, we have Howard Snyder as the town planner and Wendy Beaumont as the administrative assistant. We're going to call the meeting to order at 7:03. And first order of business will be the minutes of March 12th, 2014. I'll hear a motion to approve those.
So moved.
Tilly makes the motion,
A second?
and it's seconded by Bob to approve the minutes of March 12th, 2014.
Very
Any
good
changes?
minutes, I might say.
Yeah,
They were
pretty good.
very good minutes.
Thank you.
She getting good like that,
You
ain't she?
were really on
Massive.
top of it.
I just take it
Took me
as a matter of course. I mean, I'm happy when I can find a typo. It's almost like a challenge.
Yeah,
I do take it as a
there
challenge.
shouldn't be any with both of us looking at it, but sorry to say there are on occasion.
All comments received from the board are in the minutes, so.
Yeah.
Good.
Any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes of March 12th, 2014, say aye.
Aye.
All say nay, that don't approve, and all that abstain.
Abstain.
Let the record show that the motion carries 3-0 with one abstention, Rob Hoover, because he wasn't here. Great. Okay, moving right along. Howard, why don't you walk us through the correspondence? I see there are 6 items there.
There are 6 items. The first 3 are from the town of Raleigh. They're legal notices. DEP, we received a notice of some work that will be done on culverts. It's a notice of license application. That's provided to the board just for informational purposes. That's more of a Concom purview.
Courtesy of us?
Yeah.
Courtesy us. And that's
Town of
down at
George-
Central Street?
On Central Street.
On Central
and,
Street, down near Noonan, somewhere around there?
Past
Past Noonan, a little
Past
further down,
Noonan's, almost
near
at
Georgetown
Elm.
Road. Couple there?
And the other one, there's two. There's the other one that's on,
2 culverts, very,
Yeah.
one's a big 10-foot box culvert, one's a
no,
48 inch or
one's
something.
on another street.
Oh,
by-
really?
Yeah,
I think they're both on
Parker River.
97.
Where is that one?
North Street, right?
No, Thurlow.
So there were 2 on,
There's a twin setup.
a twin set up on Central and one up on oh, the big one on Thurlow.
Yes.
Where we always put in for, where, Parker River Clean Water Association puts in for the annual, canoe day in
I
May.
think that's the one that.
That's the big one,
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
the FEMA is,
driving that.
yeah.
A FEMA grant.
Is that right? I don't know if it's the whole thing, but.
Great. Well, I'm sure we'll hear more about that when it goes through Concom, right?
Yep, right.
Yep. We'll get a courtesy copy, right?
Of the filing, right.
Cool.
We received, the 2 of note are both from the Georgetown Zoning Board of Appeals. One was a memo from the ZBA regarding an accessory apartment bylaw
Mhm.
that the board will be taking on later on in the meeting.
Yeah, we have a hearing for that, right?
We have a hearing for that.
Can bring that up then.
And we received a public hearing notice regarding what is referred to as a convenience store. So it's a notice of the Richdale moving out of their current location across the street.
Uh-huh. Over where Tina's used to be or something?
Yeah.
Is that what Tina's used to be?
Tina's, and after Tina's, wasn't there a
Yeah.
Sal's?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Sal's.
There was a
Sal's,
Sal's,
yeah.
too.
There was Athena was there.
They've had
You know,
quite
yeah,
a turnover.
yeah.
It used to be Super Scoop.
The suit, yeah, pick a month, pick a business.
Once the ZBA are done with their permitting, I'm sure they'll be on to the planning board for special permit or a site plan review.
I get it. Assuming it gets the use variance, right? Use variances are tough to get, aren't they?
Very.
Anyway, moving along, we have some vouchers. And,
We do, we happen to have 5 vouchers tonight. One's from our general account to pay for the public hearing notices, the legal notices, and Gatehouse Media.
Mhm.
For the zoning amendments the board are currently undertaking.
Mhm.
And then we have 4 that will be drawn from the 53G accounts. One for Turning Leaf, one for Jefferson Court, one's for Hydraulics Plus, and one is for the minor modification for the 6 Marina Way site plan.
So I will, given what Howard just said, accept the motion to pay the vouchers totaling $4,046.64.
So moved.
So moved by Bob. Is there a second?
Second.
So seconded by Tilly. Any discussion?
Look at
Pretty much above board to me. You okay with them, Howard? Any changes, amendments, or anything?
No?
Good.
No changes.
Robert, kind of, I don't know, it's in your packet.
I took a look at it, but
Good,
I'll
Pete.
abstain.
Nothing you saw? Okay. Tilly, you okay? All in favor of paying the vouchers totaling $4,046.64, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All abstaining?
Aye.
Motion carries 3-0, 1 abstention. Great. And, do you want to pass those around for signatures, Howard? Thank you. Good with the vouchers. And done. Under old business, it seems as though we have a decision of approval for a minor modification to approved site plan. Do we have that, all written out ready for a signature, Howard?
Yes.
This is just so that the board know. Oh, let the record show that Tim Howard arrives at 7:10?
The planning board closed the public hearing and signed the Mylar, but there was a couple of requested changes to the decision, so that's presented here tonight.
And so this is pretty much ministerial. This isn't, the hearing's all closed.
Correct.
We just need to sign it.
Right.
And if we could,
There's 2 signature pages on there.
great, start it all off. You have all the changes that were requested by the board, right?
Correct, they're provided in the packet too, so I haven't received any comments.
Great. Get that going down there. And, sorry,
Chairman, a question.
Go for it.
My name is listed sometimes as Robert and sometimes as Bob.
it's confusing.
It doesn't bother me. I just want to make sure that it's clean.
Those documents, decisions and so forth, they need to be spelled out with your full legal name.
Okay, so should it, can I correct that?
Is it spelled out as Bob?
Bob?
My apologies.
That's okay.
Can be Robert, right?
I can correct it and initial it and.
Yeah.
But if you call me Robert, I won't know who you're talking to.
Look, it's gonna get awfully confusing with 2 Roberts.
If I hear Robert, I'll think it's my mother.
Oh, is your proper name Robert? No, I just wanna know. This is Robert, but it was Robert.
Things like that, I think you have it, whatever.
We'll fix it all up. If you could be so kind, sir. As soon as you sign that, you can send it right back. Great. Moving along. The Form H for the Park and Rec Athletics Fields, that was signed, Howard?
Right.
That was all prepared?
This was approved and at the last meeting, but we just had a
It was a Scrivener's error?
Scrivener's error, so I have the correct one here. It's in-
So Tilly was already asked to sign that, right?
No, I wasn't.
At the last meeting.
Oh, yeah, right.
So this is just a correction of it. Turning Leaf, extension of time for a Form H.
That needs to have a vote motion in order to sign.
Two signatures for you for this, Tilly. We good with these? 3 on everything? 3 signatures on every one of them?
There's 5 vouchers, 2 signatures.
So I will now ask the board, turning leaf for the Turning Leaf subdivision, we're not reopening. This is outside of hearing. This is ministerial. There's been a request naturally for an extension of decision time, a request for a Form H. And I'll accept a motion to grant the Form H request.
So moved.
Okay, Tim makes the motion
Second.
and seconded by Tilly to grant the Form H extension for Turning Leaf subdivision. Any discussion?
The only question I have is regarding Rob's new role and what he can engage himself in, and how we might want to think about bringing him into the process for some of the ongoing projects.
Well, I'll stand corrected by Howard if I say anything that's.
I'll listen.
Okay. My understanding is Rob is now appointed and sworn onto the board. He can sit at all of these just as any of us can sit. Ask questions, take information. Anything that had started before he was appointed, where the hearing opened prior to him being appointed to the board. My understanding is that while he can participate at the hearing, he cannot vote at the end of it. Is that correct?
Correct.
That's correct according to town council, right?
Any hearings moving forward that are open, new ones, you'll be able to participate.
Just wanted to make
Full
sure
board
that
member,
was,
just like you and I.
just wanted to make sure that was on the record.
Absolutely, sure. Any other discussion with respect to the Form H?
I wish it were not so.
No more discussion for the Form H. Tim made a motion to grant the Form H extension for Turning Leaf. And it was seconded by Tilly. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining?
Abstain.
Let the record show that the vote was 4 ayes, no nays, and 1 abstention. And Tilly, you'll be signing that?
Yep.
Great.
Good.
We're way ahead of schedule. I'm loving this.
Can I make a
I'm loving
suggestion
this.
that
As long as
we
it doesn't
skip the
extend the
business?
schedule. Pardon me?
Can I make a
Lay out for
suggestion that
street
we skip
acceptance?
to new
Sure.
business and just move into public hearings for the
Sure.
audience?
Sounds great. Sounds great. Let's start with the first public hearing. And the first public hearing continuation tonight will be 105R East Main Street. Will the representatives please join us? Just to bring us up to speed, Rob, for your edification and background. I know you won't be voting on this, but it's always nice to hear about it. We've gone through a couple of hearings here. Mr. Ritchie is proposing to rent the rear area there, that back building. He'll be using the first floor and as a hydraulic shop. This is a site plan approval. It just so happened that Larry Graham happened to be at the hearing with us, and he added a few little things that happened. He added some signage to make things a little better. The board had asked that the parking that's being shown on this plan now was moved around from the other side, 90 degrees. And now there's a 5-foot separation, there's an HP spot, proper signage, or there will be. And if I'm not mistaken, there was a meeting between Howard and
Dana.
Dana, and there was a request due to the particulars of being able to easily remove snow, to move the islands, which, see where Howard's little hand is there, to move them slightly, well, how's this
They
oriented?
moved out to
What is
here.
that? What is that, west, east, south? What is that? South?
South.
That's east.
That's east?
And then this moved west over to this location.
Okay. So,
They also thought that moving those closer to the traffic flow in this direction would make the traffic control that was the intent of these islands
Right.
more effective.
nice, it'll help direct the cars and trucks that are
And-
going around the building.
Right, to stop
Yeah.
people from coming
I
in
agree.
and rolling through.
Nice, nice. Even though we're looking at a PDF on the screen that shows the islands where they used to be located, my understanding is there's a Mylar
Right.
that we have tonight that we could sign with the relocate.
Right. I visited the site, and the other comments made by the board at the last meeting was the signage on these two pillars at the gate. Those have been, those are up and installed. And on our site walk last Thursday, we talked about the sign that needed to be placed up on this column. And I was just over there, it wasn't there, but Constantine has a shop drawing.
It'll be ready Friday. I can pick them up Friday.
Great, very good.
With that being said, do we have a decision that goes with this house?
Yes.
And
That was provided in the.
do you have a date on that for me? Just so I can reference it?
At a meeting of the planning board held on March 26th, the planning board voted to approve with conditions the application of Constantine Ritchie.
Okay. Did everyone have a chance to look at the draft?
Yep.
Okay, you good with it?
Yeah.
Let me find a new page here. Okay, good. I'll accept the motion to approve the decision dated March 26th, 2014. I'll accept the motion to do that, if I hear it. So moved by Bob
I'll second
and seconded by Tim. Any discussion?
No, I think we went around and around with this.
Yeah.
I'm happy with it.
This horse has been laying there for a while.
Can I have that and just enter into the file?
Sure.
Exhibit 1.
And that's what's hanging on the building?
The signs that will be.
That's what's gonna go in front,
Yep.
what is it, 58 inches, so you can see it from the screen or something, whatever that HP. Sure, the building inspector will make you move it up or down. Motion has been made and seconded to approve it. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? All abstaining? Motion, let the record show the motion carries 4-0 with 1 abstention. Great. Excellent. Good. Okay. Is there a second place to sign on that?
That's
There-
their certificate, and then
And
the
then the-
actual decisions you need
Okay.
to sign in the back.
That's a double sign. Gotcha. While we're doing that, I will, are there any comments, anything you need to say?
The sign, Howard?
Yeah.
The,
That's it.
the big sign?
That's part of the application.
Okay, all right.
Cool. This is a public hearing. Are there any comments or questions from the audience? Going once, twice, 3 times. I'll accept the motion to close the hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Tim to close the public hearing.
When's opening day?
Tomorrow.
All right,
Second.
good, good.
Seconded by,
Get those hoes going.
seconded by, all in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? All abstaining? Let the record show that, that vote, motion carries. It was 4-0 with 1 abstention. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I think the back part of that too.
Yeah, make it easy. It isn't easy for a lefty.
Now it's gonna stay
I know.
in the front.
I thought I did get the front one already.
Oh, you
Yeah.
got it.
You did get that one,
I
Tilly?
got that one up. the
Yeah,
back.
yeah. We all missed that back one. Great.
All right,
Good,
thank
thank
Hearing
you.
is closed. Thank you very much. Good
Thank
luck.
you. Yeah.
Thanks.
If you need a hose, that's where to go. Now, you carry the metric ones too, right?
Everything.
I would hope so. Even those funny Cabelco ones?
All right, all right, all right.
Toyota, you name it.
That's now closed, that's out of the way, right? We'll move on to the second one. Second one tonight, I'm gonna open the hearing. Excuse me, I'm gonna reopen the continuation of the public hearing for the definitions and word usage, chapter 165-7. This was continued from February 26th. This is an amendment that this board will be making a recommendation and a report to the Board of Selectmen about to change the zoning code.
All the amendments that we'll be discussing are in the second packet that was distributed. You'll find in the packet, under the public hearings, the track changes that were used, reflecting the revisions requested of the board at the last meeting. Edited text being underlined. No changes to planned unit development. Accessory apartment was changed to reflect owner occupied and for rental to a unrelated person. Medical office was reflected to state a suite of rooms that may include. Open space residential removed the last 4 words of the definition. No changes to registered marijuana dispensaries. Solar energy facilities, ground mounted solar was reflected just to be a solar voltaic installation.
Say that 3 times fast, please.
Yeah.
And no changes to wind energy facility definitions.
Just,
Those are the
just for the
additions.
folks in the audience, if you haven't been following along, and I don't know why you wouldn't be, this is so fascinating, this stuff. Those were all requested changes made at the last continuation. And I believe that is the first and the second. We actually have 2 public hearings going here. Right?
Right, public hearing for subtraction.
Definition of word usage, the first is the subtractions. So we'll deal with the first one, which only deals with what's being removed, which is planned unit development. Okay? I want to keep this in order so we don't mess up. So, with all due respect to everything is, I'm going to, are there any public comments strictly about public hearing number 1, subtracting from the words from the zoning bylaw and the definitions, 165-7, the words planned unit development? We haven't done those for, I don't know, decades.
Since OSRD.
Since OSRD came in, what was that,
It's been about
2005?
12 years. since
Yeah,
we've
something
done
like that.
PUD.
The zoning section's been removed, it's just the
Yeah.
definition never was.
Yeah,
so-
it was replaced. OSRD replaced planned unit development. This is just removing that definition out of the section of the bylaw that describes all of the definitions. Are there any public comments? Only once? Twice? 3 times? Board, any comments? Seems like pretty much a no-brainer, right? I'll ask, just to keep it technically correct, I'm gonna ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
So moved by Bob. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Tim. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, Tilly, did you
Excuse
say
me.
something?
Is this just for the
This is
housekeeping
strictly,
ones?
this is strictly for public hearing, just this one section. This is one whole public hearing right here, in and of
Okay.
itself,
Great, thank you.
right?
Yep, I gotcha.
Cool. All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? All abstaining? Let the record show that the vote for that was 4-0 with 1 abstention. And the public hearing is now closed. Now that public hearing is closed as business, I'll accept a motion from any board member to report favorably or not. Okay, how do we do this?
Recommend.
Right.
That's the word you want.
Or to ask Howard, how about we ask Howard to create a report that recommends this change to the selectmen?
Correct.
How's that sound?
Perfect.
That sound about right?
Love it.
I think that pretty much encapsulates it. To ask Howard,
Well, if you want to make it really official,
what?
town planner.
Oh my gosh. Ask the town
Not be
planner,
confused with Tim Allen.
please. Ask the town planner, Wendy, make sure you capitalize those for me, please. Town planner
Italics. Bold,
to report
Very bold.
to the selectmen. Somebody wanna make that motion for me?
Yeah. So moved.
So moved by Bob, seconded by Tim. Any discussion on this? I mean, we're gonna be repeating this about a half a dozen times tonight, so. How do you feel about it? I mean, because I don't know if you're in favor or opposed to it, or maybe we should take a vote? All
Well-
those in favor of this?
Yeah.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye? Aye, was that an aye, Tilly?
Yeah, go ahead.
All those opposed? All those abstaining? Okay, so you can report, Howard, that, the board votes to recommend this 4-0 with one abstention,
Right.
okay? So,
That report can be made to the selectmen, either written or orally. So,
okay, you might wanna
once
just,
we're done with all the
package
public
up a nice
hearings,
email, right?
there'll be a letter.
beautiful, package up an email, great. Gonna take this opportunity to open the second public hearing of the night, which is, well, it's the third, whatever. Definitions and word usage. This is the additions. Opening the public hearing.
Is that what's up there?
Yeah, we're still- no, we're still in-
No, that's Windows Explorer. That's Windows Explorer, that's an Explorer window. This is what it looks like, Tilly. You wanna go back to page 3 of 11? Go back to page 3? Everybody on the same page with this?
Yep.
Okay, now we're looking at, basically what we define here are accessory apartment, medical office, open space residential development, registered marijuana dispensary, solar energy facilities, and wind energy facility. These are the again, this is a continuation of a hearing that was held back on February 26th. And these were all requested changes. We asked Howard to make them so that we could see this draft. Anybody have any comments, questions, concerns, changes?
Yes, that's the next section that you're talking about here.
No, I'm talking about just this right
Why
here,
is this so confusing?
just here.
All right.
Probably because they both seem to, they're
I thought
pretty
we
much
already-
linked, but they have to be done in 2 separate public hearings. Because that's how they were advertised. And,
We're still on this.
Yep.
Still on the same
I thought we finished that when we first voted. I thought we voted for definitions.
right, but that's the first public hearing, was to remove that. And then the
That's
second
right.
public hearing, right? Second public hearing
Yeah?
is definition of word usage. This is the second part of it, so to speak.
This is additions.
This is
instead of subtractions.
all adds that we're adding to the bylaw in this one. In the first one, we removed from the bylaw.
And then you jumped over here.
No, I did not jump over there. I
Oh.
won't jump over there until I open the next hearing.
All
Promise.
right.
Promise, promise. Okay?
I'll try to follow you. Go ahead.
It won't be that tough. Howard, do you want to bring this up, or to,
I don't.
don't have it?
For the screen.
Not a big deal. Is everybody on the same page with us, basically?
So public hearing 2 is accessory apartment, medical office, open space residential development, registered marijuana dispensaries, solar energy facilities, and wind energy.
Yep, and we're just adding these as, in the definitions section
Okay,
of chapter 165, chapter 7,
all right.
section 7.
I do have a question though, because
Go
I
for
didn't
it.
realize, and it's good that we're going over this.
Yeah, of course.
Somehow or other, we must have wanted to have the ground mounted solar removed.
Mhm.
The ground mounted removed.
Mhm.
However, when you get to the bylaw itself,
Mm-hmm.
we still have it in there as ground mounted?
Well, bear in mind, the reason that we asked to have the two words ground mounted removed was because later on, remember, this is definitions. This is at the very beginning of the zoning code. These are the definitions. A solar energy facility can be either a ground mounted or a roof mounted.
All right,
This is pretty much the generic, and then further on, later on in the solar
actual
energy
bylaw.
bylaw itself, then we further define what a solar energy facility is. It is either a ground-mounted solar array or a rooftop-mounted solar
well,
array.
that's where I am confused, because what I was looking at strictly with the bylaw says that you're only addressing ground, the whole bylaw.
That's right.
So why would you have something different here, removing ground, if that's the only thing we're working on?
Because the definition of solar energy facility includes both ground-mounted and roof-mounted.
I thought the bylaw was revised not to exclude roof-mounted in terms of commercial facilities.
Yep.
And
And
it only
we will get
addresses
into that when we get to
ground,
that hearing.
right?
The actual bylaw considers ground and roof-mounted. And the definition here is just a descriptive of what a solar energy facility is, not where it will be located.
Or that the bylaw is addressing,
The bylaw is addressing
the roof ones as
the
well?
roof and ground-mounted. Roof being commercial. It excludes any roof-mounted residential.
This doesn't. This includes everything.
Right.
Because
This is
this is the
broad-based.
generic term, the broad-based solar energy facility. When you think of what a solar energy facility is,
Yeah.
it can be either or,
Okay,
all right? Everybody clear on that?
Yep.
Might have been clearer if we had said a ground mounted or ground or roof mounted.
right, it would have been,
But either way, it
yeah,
says the same thing.
It's a photovoltaic system, basically.
yeah, some bylaws
Not
just
a
write
wind.
solar energy, instead of facility systems.
Mhm.
You know, something like that. All right. Okay, if everybody else is happy with it.
Does it work for you?
Mhm.
Bob? Absolutely. Jim?
Yep.
Not being rude, Rob, but
Makes sense.
if you have any questions?
No, it makes sense.
Oh, it's a generic term. For members of the public, I don't know if you have copies of these. I think there might be some floating around. Are there any comments, questions? What we're talking about here are 6 definitions that will be clarified in the bylaw. Any comments, questions? Not all at once now. I'll accept a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
So moved. Second.
Ah, wow. Bob was quick, Tilly. You can get that second in. I know you can.
We wanna move this
I
forward.
did.
You got that second in?
Yeah.
Seconded by Tilly. Motion was made by Bob, seconded by Tilly to close the public hearing. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, all abstaining.
Abstain.
Let the record show that the motion carried to close the public hearing 4-0 to 1 abstention. And just like we did before, let's take a vote on whether we recommend this or we don't recommend this.
I move we
All.
vote to recommend it.
Bob makes a motion to recommend to the Board of Selectmen.
Second.
In the same manner as was the first.
Yep. Bob to recommend, seconded by Tim. Any discussion about what we're doing? All in favor of recommending this bylaw be modified, this modification of the bylaw go through and be recommended to the Board of Selectmen, say aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain, sorry.
No problem. Let the record show that the planning board recommends this 4-0 to 1, with 1 abstention. That one's done. Bear with me, I don't want to lose track here. Okay. Now, I am going to open continuation of the use regulations and intensity use schedule modifications. Reopening this hearing. Use regulations and intensity of use schedule. And these are modifications to the table. Okay. There were some changes asked for at the last continuation. By the way, that was a hearing continued from February 26th, right?
Correct.
February 26th, for the record.
Changes made at the request of the board were a correction in spelling for registered marijuana dispensaries. And a change, there was an incorrect permit designation for housing for elderly in the IB district.
It was a typo, right?
Correct,
And those are the only two changes being made, right? That
Correct.
the board had asked for at that meeting.
correct.
Does anybody have any more changes that they'd like to request?
I still feel like, and I brought it up at the February 26th meeting, that you're looking at this and you're not seeing, we're only gonna have a site approval process. And when somebody comes in and looks at this with all these Ps, the Ps mean just go to the building inspector and get a permit.
Okay, if I'm hearing what you're saying, Tilly, just to take,
A permitted use doesn't mean that they can go in and just get a permit by the building inspector.
I
The
know, but-
bylaw states that they need to come in and have a site plan review, it just states that it's a permitted use. in
God
the-
bless you.
In the zone district.
Yeah, well, I have, looked at several communities and they all have, if a site approval is required, it's there.
We
It's written
do have
SP.
it as site approval is required in our bylaw.
But I mean, in this use schedule, in the charts,
Then you need to be discussing changing the whole chart.
only adding S's to the, where the solar and the wind is
You'll
required.
be talking about changing the whole schedule, because the whole schedule doesn't have anything with an S on
may I
it.
interject here? Does anybody have a copy of the zoning bylaw? You have a copy of it floating around? Maybe, maybe there's an elegant solution here.
This is taken directly from the bylaws.
Exactly, and,
This is, so this is
just to
all
hear your concern, Tilly,
But it's
Just to hear your
same is
concern.
true on the bottom.
we're not changing pipe organ making. This doesn't apply to registered marijuana dispensaries.
Somebody got, make it P.
The signs, where you're seeing signs, and I wish this could be up on the screen. We had it last week, but,
No,
sorry,
I'm only,
folks.
I'm only questioning the solar and the wind,
right.
okay?
But perhaps what would help here is, under solar energy facilities, it shows a P in the RA, RB, CA, CB, CC, IA, and IB, and RC district. I think one of the things we're not seeing is, the rest of
The table.
the table,
Yeah.
use intensity schedule. What it is I believe if we did actually look at that, there are probably 30
There's about
notes.
50 different uses that are
Mhm.
defined under residential, commercial, industrial.
And at the end of that table
You
are
have the
a
same.
series of notes,
Right.
because
Further explaining what P, for
further
instance, means.
explaining. So perhaps what we could do, if it would be clearer to everyone, so that they're not under any kind of illusion that that this is a 100% buy right thing. You just walk in, sign a form, and walk out and go build your solar energy facility. Perhaps we could add a note to that. Many of the Ps and the other designations in the chart have notes. Perhaps we could add a note that we could add to solar energy facilities, and it would say P, well, I don't know what notes there are. Do we not have a zoning book with us? just so that we get the note,
Harry, I
the
think
number
that's a
right.
real good idea.
I think it's a,
The more we can provide a roadmap to,
Yeah, better.
we're
That's
just
true.
doing kindness, and it's gonna save people time and money and effort and angst.
Well, but it's kind of common sense too, because you're permitted to build a house in a residential zone. Doesn't mean you can build it without getting a permit.
well,
But you go
the
to
thing
the-
about it is this, I mean, I understand what you're saying, because, I mean, right above it, signs. We say signs have Ps all across the board, P, 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 in every district. They are permitted. They're not just something that, because I read this in the intensity use schedule, I can print a sign and go hang it on my building. I have to get a permit.
You have to read the sign bylaw.
I have to read the sign bylaw,
Right, and
the building inspector is gonna look at it, and he's gonna be the one to issue the permit. What Tilly's saying is, it's a little bit more complicated than just that. It goes beyond just the building inspector. What it does is it actually involves, in some cases, site plan approval, depending upon the size of your facility and where it's located.
If you wish to add a note to
Yeah.
the use regulation schedule, after the word solar energy facilities, you would add a 33. After wind energy facilities, you would add a 33.
How is the rest of the schedule, Howard? Is it, I seem to remember the letters themselves had the note designations.
No, it's just the description of the use,
Okay.
has the number at the
I
end.
thought some of the Ps and things like
No.
that had it right after them in the,
No. Just after the term under the use category.
May I ask one additional question? In the bylaw, does it say what an A is? Because it doesn't
There's
say
no
so
A.
here.
Yeah, you got a
Yeah.
bunch of As in here, Howard. What does an A mean?
it's a permitted use.
It's, no, A is.
No.
A is a use authorized by special permit granted by the Board of Appeals.
Oh.
As
Board
long
of- A
as
is the
it's in
Board
the
of
bylaw,
Appeals.
as long as
That's right.
it's in the
Board of Appeals.
bylaw,
Yeah.
then I'm fine with it.
Right, it just wasn't included
In this, yeah.
in this schedule to keep it simple, and this is also what was advertised in the public notice. So, note 33 would read, added
This would be for solar energy facilities.
solar and wind.
And we,
And
Or
we,
if,
yeah,
because eventually the board will be taking up wind after the meeting,
Sooner or later.
sooner or later.
So we could add a 33 after solar energy facilities and a 33 after wind energy facilities.
Correct.
And Tilly, what would give you a level of comfort that note would describe?
a site plan approval.
May require site plan approval?
Required, yeah,
May require site plan approval?
not may. Isn't it a requirement?
Not for solar.
Shall.
Some might not. Roof mounted wouldn't.
Well, that would be the discretion of the board, wouldn't it?
No, it's in the bylaw.
Where's that?
We'll be bringing that
Application
up in
for
a
a
few
solar
minutes.
energy facility shall be reviewed by the permit granting authority.
And that's us, site approval.
But if
A
it's
solar energy facility shall undergo site plan approval review by the permit granting authority.
Or you could just change the Ps to Ds, so the planning board would have to have it.
No, you're not
No.
gonna change it to D, cause
No.
D states special permit.
that's a special permit. And that would get bounced by the.
That's where I'm
That would
saying
get
DS.
bounced, that would get bounced, it would get through town meeting, but the Attorney General would bounce it in a second, in a heartbeat.
DS? Really?
Site plan approvals, all, yeah, well, the distinction is
I'm telling you, I
a
see.
roof-mounted, non-commercial, roof-mounted, residential.
I think
Would not
what
require
Harry's
site
saying
plan
about
approval.
may actually does make sense, because it's just a flag. It's not saying it, under all circumstances, is required.
Right,
But, I mean, this isn't an instruction booklet. You know, this isn't on how to.
It's a filter.
It's a filter, and it's, I think that's sufficient to give someone who wants to put a commercial,
The whole permitting
Solar,
process is outlined in the bylaw.
And in the odd chance that you had someone coming in on a Tuesday that picked this up and read it and wanted to put a solar energy facility in, And it just so happened on the Monday right before that, that we got a brand-new building inspector that doesn't even know where Georgetown is really, and still looking through his desk. That note 33 would flag it.
I better check this out. I'll go talk to him.
Yeah, I'll go talk to Howard, I'll go look up with the solar energy bylaw.
To me, it's redundant, but it's the comfort of the board, because when they see it's permitted, they're gonna look into the bylaw to see how it's permitted.
Absolutely. But again, a little bit of additional information in the use chart is.
I think the use chart needs some more work on it, because if in fact the ground prophylactic,
Photovoltaic.
yeah,
Photovoltaic.
if that is going to require, the only one that's going to require a site approval, then we should list it. And and then it would be by itself, and then you could say, put the 33 there. When you put may into something as, let's call this concrete, a graph, you're opening possibilities
Well,
for other
that-
things.
I mean, that
You have to
also-
be more explicit.
But again, we could go down that rabbit hole deep, 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 and turn this into a very complicated document, and it's not its purpose. And one of the things that I just realized is that a permitted use can also be pronounced a permitted use.
It is.
It's, depends on where you accent the word.
You need a
If you read
permit
it
for
as-
it. In other words, one is,
Exactly.
you can do it, the other is you need a permit for it.
Right, right.
Yeah,
In,
yeah.
in note 12, and I'm using this as an example, it states earth removal and importation permitted in accordance with the earth removal and importation bylaw. So,
Perhaps that's the solution.
so in this instance,
In
note
accordance with
33,
the
Article-
solar bylaw.
Right.
Okay, so note 33, maybe it would just say in accordance with the solar bylaw.
And since we
And
haven't.
then all the technical specifications fall within that.
Yeah, I think that's,
Does that
yeah.
sound like a
Does-
reasonable
Does the
solution to
solar
this?
bylaw differentiate between roof mounted and ground mounted?
Yeah.
'Cause it sounds
they
like
differentiate in the fact
No.
that it excludes residential roof mounted and considers roof mounted and ground mounted for commercial.
So you're saying it,
Same with wind.
But it doesn't,
It's
that
parallel.
isn't, when you look at this,
Parallel
at the
to the-
chart, it doesn't.
Well,
It's
by the
it's
same-
identical.
By the same
chart
token-
shouldn't be designating it. The chart's
Right.
just to state
Yeah.
what type of permit is required for the use.
By the same token, Tilly, one line above that is signs, and that's a permitted use, PPP, all the way across the board. And yet, there isn't anything that points to the fact that we have a sign bylaw that the building inspector needs to reference before he hands out a permit for that.
Well, none of them does. None of
None of
this
them.
does.
Right.
And I think
The
right.
whole
that's-
chart
I
does
think
not
really
address that.
That's really the point. I mean, we could maintain the parallelism by putting nothing in,
Mhm.
or we could do it in the same way as the earth removal. But I tend to think nothing might be the better way to go.
One opinion? Rob?
My experience, it's a slippery slope when you start trying to identify the same issue in a number of places. And that typically in an ordinance, you really want to try to limit it to just one place so that when changes happen over a period of time, you really can't keep track of it. And the other is when you start to try to cross-reference like this and add these notes, if you're not consistent with it throughout the entire process, I have seen applicants come back to the boards and saying, well, you said it here, but you didn't say it for this one here, so we never looked for it, and therefore we did this. So my recommendation, and I'm coming in late, so take it with a grain of salt, but my recommendation is to, at the most, add a 33 if that seems to do it, but
A 33 that references the
Ju-
bylaw.
yes, just that,
Okay, that references the bylaw.
but I
In
think,
accordance with.
or do nothing at all. I mean, I think it is pretty clear. that this is just what's telling you what's allowed, what you can do, and then it's,
How
it
to
is
do
there.
it is another issue.
Yeah, and it is pretty clear.
Tim, what do you think?
I vote for nothing at all.
Nothing at all. I know this is board discussion and all, but this is a public hearing. Is there any public officials or members of the audience that, members of the public that want to chime in on this? How is it when you read the use table?
Which I'm sure you do nightly.
Come on now, I know it's right on your nightstand. Come on, you don't have to kid me. Yes, sir, would you state your name for the record and please sign that slip over there? And you're gonna have to step up a little closer to the microphone to be heard.
I'm Frank Coppola, I live at 129 Pond Street. I guess I'm a little confused. There's a private use for solar energy here and wind power, and there's a commercial use.
And we'll be getting into that.
Because you don't
We'll be
want-
getting into that when we do the solar bylaw itself. We're not doing the solar bylaw right now.
But you're doing the intensity of use,
We're
use schedule.
adding
Use schedule.
a use to the intensity
Okay.
of use schedule.
So, well, the bylaw only applies to commercial, correct?
No.
It's open. It just says solar energy facilities.
If I wanted to put solar panels on my roof,
Mhm.
that wouldn't require a visit here. But if I wanted to
Just for the building inspector.
600 solar panels in my backyard to sell back to the town,
Mhm.
would that require?
Yes.
Okay, so it
And
does,
you'll see this more.
so there is
as
a
we go
different,
forward.
there is,
Mm-hmm.
it does differ.
Absolutely. But the point is,
Okay.
as far
So,
as,
well, that's what I just let me get me through the
right,
question and then.
okay.
So you got so I don't have to, I wouldn't have to come in to put the solar panels on my house for my own purposes, but if I was gonna do something for commercial purpose, I would.
You would not have to come for a site plan review, but you just can't go and put that on your roof any more than you
Well,
can
I-
hang
I'd
an
go to the
antenna
building
on your
inspector
roof.
to get-
You have to go to the building inspector,
Right,
exactly.
building permit.
You need a building permit, right.
But that doesn't.
Right.
Your
I think what Tilly's saying is because people might see that P there, that they might think they can do anything.
Well, I would
And
be
it's permitted.
comfortable with, do you really want people being able to go into a residential neighborhood and put 600 panels in their backyard without going through? I think a site plan review basically is more of an engineering review to make sure that it's safe. Permit, a special permit generally is to make sure that it's not detrimental to the area around it. I'm sure my neighbors wouldn't be thrilled if I threw 600 panels in my backyard. I would like to see a differentiation between the residential districts in town and the commercial districts. I think it should be a higher hurdle to put them into a residential area than into a commercial or industrial area.
Thank you. Getting back to the use table. We're gonna have to end this at some point. Are there any other comments about the use table? Because the discussion that we'll be having about the solar bylaw comes up in the next hearing or the one after that or something. Doesn't sound like there's too much public. What say ye, board? Are we adding a note 33 that says, that references the solar bylaw, or are we not? I'll take a motion either way.
I'll make a motion not to.
Okay, Tim makes a motion, moves
To basically
To-
accept this as
Yeah.
written.
accept,
Yes.
to accept as written,
Yep.
A second.
to accept the table
The use
As-
regulation and intensity of use schedule modifications.
as written in the draft. And it was seconded by Bob. Any discussion? Glad there isn't. All in favor?
Aye.
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 No.
All opposed? All opposed?
Opposed, one.
All abstaining? Let the record show that the motion carries 3-1 with one abstention. Okay. I'll accept the motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Well, which one is it? Did you move it or did you
No,
second it?
I defer to.
Tim makes the motion to close the public hearing, seconded by Bob. Any discussion? Shouldn't be any. All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed?
No, I voted aye.
All
Close it.
all abstain.
Abstain.
Let the record show that the public hearing was closed with a vote of 4-0 with one abstention.
No. Oh, okay.
Did,
Oh,
did you
never
not wanna
mind.
close the hearing?
Yeah, we closed it. Now we're on 4, right?
You need to vote to refer the recommendation.
Yes, we need to vote to,
I move that we refer this to, to be included in the communication that the town planner will.
refer the
We'll
vote
make the recommendation
to
to,
the town planner, to the Board of Selectmen. Is there a second for that?
Second.
Seconded by Tim. And you, all in favor of referring that vote to the Board of Selectmen? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
1, D.
Opposed? All abstaining?
Abstain.
Let the record show that that vote was 3 to 1 with 1 abstention. Okay, got that, Howard? Okay. Move along to the next public hearing for the night. This is solar energy facilities. It's a brand-new bylaw. What is that? Article
18.
18. 5, 6, 7, 8. 18.
This is a continued public hearing from the 26th.
Reopening the public hearing for solar energy facilities. Okay. And
Included in the.
this was continued from February 26th, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Included in the packet is a revised copy. Track changes are used to reflect what the board had stated they want to change. Of note is
Start with page 2,
page 2, 165-137,
136,
C,
136B, right?
165-137, C, is
But the-
what I wanted to point out.
Oh, okay.
Was the addition of the sentence, installation on residential structures shall not require site plan approval.
That was something that we added in,
Right.
right? Did everybody hear that?
Yeah.
Did the audience hear that? Because I know that was brought up before. One of the things that we're adding is a term that says installation on residential structures, as in a roof-mounted system, shall not require a site plan approval.
I just want to note the first sentence states, nothing in this section shall be construed to prevent the installation of accessory roof-mounted solar photovoltaic installation on residential structures.
On residential structures,
Accessory use.
on residential, right? Okay. And,
And Mr. Chairman, the first part of that, as I had mentioned before, the first sentence, purpose and intent,
purpose and intent. Oh, you're back way up in 165, 135, purpose and intent. Go ahead.
of this bylaw is to promote the creation of new ground-mounted solar. Is that going to stay in there?
Ooh, good point, Tilly. Nice catch.
That's where I was
Nice catch.
concerned.
The purpose of this bylaw is to promote the creation of new ground-mounted solar.
Photovoltaic installations. We have to strike ground mounted. Strike the 2 words ground mounted. Nice catch, Tilly. So that will be stricken from 165, 135, purpose and intent, A. That's the first line. Going too fast, Wendy? You got that? No, seriously. I know, it's complicated.
165, it was stricken from 165A,
165, chapter 165,
Yeah.
section 135,
section 135.
purpose and intent. A. And that's from that first line in that. Strike the word ground and the word mounted, right? Good? Everybody good with that? It's a cleanup. Slip through. Right?
Under 165-138 definitions, there's discussion about the term of building inspector.
Mm-hmm.
building inspector is defined in other Georgetown bylaws.
Mhm.
It doesn't necessarily need to be defined here,
No.
so it can all be removed.
So we're also striking the term building inspector, right?
Correct.
Okay, that won't be a definition under this section.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just backing up.
Go for it.
137.
37.
Is there a definition of residential structures
Bylaw.
anywhere?
Talk about a good catch.
I know it when I see it.
No, that's pornography.
Not in 165. I don't know about other code of Georgetown, but not in 165.
Maybe just in the state building code.
And your reason for that, Rob?
My reason is that when I first saw it, someone could claim they have something in their backyard that they make, and it's a residential structure. So if there's not a definition for it, that it's a home or a place of residence,
dwelling,
primary place of residence, dwelling.
A residential structure could be a garage in the backyard, it could be a horse barn.
Could be anything.
Be a
right?
tent.
So you're considering that it ought to be just on the actual dwelling?
Well, it certainly should be defined
I don't think your building inspector would define it that way. A barn isn't a residential structure.
No, but
It's an
for the
accessory
purpose of the
structure to a
bylaw.
residential use. It's not a residential structure. And if it was a residential structure, and it was a separate building, you would need not a variance, but you'd need a permit from
The planning board.
the planning board to have two residential structures on one lot. Changed that years ago.
Right.
Used to be the ZBA and the board, and funny language that the board had to condone it or something
Why
like that.
can't a garage and a shed or a barn that are all part of
Are they separate or connected?
separate?
Separate? Separate, it's just,
It could be the-
that would not be considered a residential structure.
I think it should be.
And I
Why
think,
wouldn't it?
and I
You
mean,
may think it should be, but the state building code doesn't.
Well, I think what Tim's saying is that, to encourage, if somebody had a barn that was structurally supportive, there should be no reason why they couldn't put those on there. So, the lack of definition of this can be used against you either way you turn. Because if it was,
I think it's a residential structure is a structure built on a lot, a piece of land that is got a
It's zoned in
zoned in the residential RA, B, or C zones.
would.
I mean, you got it, in other words, you can't just buy something in the residential, like a lot, and then not put a house up and just put, because then it's commercial, and that's not allowed. You can't have a commercial use in a residential.
What if you were to
Neighborhood.
build a series of raised planters, and you built them to install a series of these panels later?
It's ground
Would that be
mounted.
an issue?
It's ground mounted.
Okay.
Well, the way this is written for the audience too is that any roof at all, you can put the solar on it. Residential structures, accessory roof mounted, and you're saying here that it does not require a site plan approval, period. So we would never see any of those solars that are put on any roof at all.
So if
Residential.
I have a residential
It
use,
says accessory as well.
and I have
residential.
I have a building which is an accessory use to my residential structure, like a barn, then it's a gimme.
Yeah, I think you should be able to put one there.
It allows it.
Yeah,
That's cool.
We've hit it,
that's fine.
Good.
That's fine.
right?
Yep.
And that was your concern, right?
Yep, that was the
Someone
concern.
would have to jump through hoops to put it on their garage.
Yep.
Put a couple panels up on their garage to
Yep.
charge their battery in their car or something.
And I'm concerned about that. I'm in the negative here about this.
You don't think people should be able to
No,
put
because-
panels on their roof without too many hoops to jump through?
I would like to consider that the site approval that we have doesn't prohibit anything. It only gives the site outside, the measurements of where it is, dimensions from side, front, and yard. But if somebody does something so horrendous and the neighborhood is upset about it, they don't have an opportunity to have a hearing.
I'd like to step back since we're in the solar right now. My understanding, and Howard, correct me if I'm wrong, a community that does not have a solar bylaw, anyone under state law, if I'm not mistaken, can walk in and demand to put a solar facility just about anywhere. Anywhere. Any size, any configuration.
The purpose of a solar energy bylaw
Bylaw.
is to create the installations, but also to regulate their locations and size.
Reasonable regulation.
Correct.
Reasonable regulation of them.
And state law prohibits it from considering residential structures, being roof mounted on residential structures.
Right, so we're not in conflict with that, we're right in line with that.
Now, if you're considering roof mounted on a commercial structure, then it
Different
would be
game,
fair game.
fair game, covered. We've been trying this one for about a year. I know we're beating it to death, and I know we're trying to get, and I wanna get every last correction in. I know we wanna do that, before it even goes to town meeting floor. Because I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of people out there that, this will be the first, they'll walk into town meeting, this will be the first time they ever hear of it, and it's gonna scare them, and they're gonna be concerned.
Well, the other concern I have about leaving it like it's written.
What exactly are you referring to, Tilly, so that
C,
we're all
we're
on the same
still on
page?
C, aren't we?
Nothing in this section shall be construed to prevent the installation of an accessory roof-mounted solar, say it three-
Photovoltaic.
say it 3 times fast, installations on residential structures. Installation on residential structures shall not require site plan approval.
Now,
Okay.
you could, if you're concerned, could, maybe it's a installation on residential dwelling structures where the people reside. If you're thinking that if it were to be placed on a barn or a garage that's not a living dwelling,
Well, I was thinking, we don't really say what size, you know, if there's like, say a 3,000-foot ranch, and he puts it all the way along with the intent to provide for his house, as well as selling what's excess.
if he's selling onto the grid, then it's regulated. If it's only for the residential use, it's not regulated.
Is that standard?
Reality is this, reality is
If
this.
he's selling it onto the grid, if he's selling it to the Georgetown Light Department, then it's commercial.
Serious, honest to God, technical reality is blazing hot July, August days, high noon sun, you're turning the meter the other way.
Yeah.
Okay, reality. The other 10 months of the year, you're saving a little money. You're saving a little money. You're still sucking from the grid.
I have,
You're still pulling from the grid.
that's true, and
You're
I.
gonna push back a little bit. One
Well-
second, Ed, just till Tilly, go ahead.
Well, what I'm concerned about, I have been driving around and making note of people's roofs.
Okay.
And there's one up by, on the way to Newburyport, that the entire roof is covered. It's a small cape. And the first thing you see is this thing, because the sun is beaming on it, it's like a neon light when you drive by in the daytime, because it's so bright. And it really, it's almost distracting, because that's all you see when you're driving is this beam. And I think that, you know, something that huge should be,
Is there any
Or more
prohibition of me
monitored.
putting a mirror on my roof right now?
people don't do that.
Well, what would stop me if I wanted to? I'm just saying this for
Yeah, I mean, you
hypothetical.
could put a steel roof on.
I could put a steel roof that's stainless
Might as-
steel.
Well, you
Might as well be
put
in
a mirror up there and you're gonna have a fire.
No, somebody else might, I won't.
Well,
Well,
and,
what you're saying is, you find it, and it's a legitimate, issue. There's a certain aesthetic that you wish to control.
I would,
no, not
I would-
really.
I would say that if you're getting glare going off the property, it can be considered a nuisance, and the property owner needs to rectify the nuisance, and that falls under building inspector, everything else, so.
Litigation of some sort.
Right.
Yeah, but what would the
Same as,
building
same as
inspector,
light.
what would the building inspector do, though? He just would pick up the bylaw and say,
No, he could,
You're
there'd be
okay.
other sections that he can enforce that, the fact that it's a nuisance.
Yeah, I can't sit in my window with a high-powered laser and glare it off your windshield as the cars drive by. That creates a safety hazard. There are things to redress that.
yeah, well,
I saw someone, did you have further comment? I saw someone from the, yeah.
It's Ed Desjardins, I'm with the Historical Commission.
Ed, please come up because this microphone is the only one that really lets you,
Okay.
we won't hear anything you say without it. or we will,
Ultimately, we'll
but-
talk a little bit about historic stuff when we get into eventually get into 5 Elm Street, but if I had a building that was 200 years old, it's a piece of the town's history, it was built in the 1700s, we should not allow someone to simply fill the roof up with these panels, solar panels. Whether it's the building inspector or someone should say, if there's something over 100 years old or 75, or you put a number on it, and this should be reviewed or at least run by the historical commission to say, hey, you can't desecrate something that's the Brocklebank Museum or something, for instance. You can't cover that with solar panels. There should be some restriction, and how that's done, I don't know, whether it's a building inspector or whether you put a blurb in your bylaws that would have them say either you come before the historical commission and let them know what you're going to do, or if it's gonna be detrimental to the neighborhood or to that specific part of the town's historic building. I don't know how you flag that.
So you're only referring to historic buildings?
Historic stuff, yeah, I
I think
don't
the
wanna
only way you
have
can do that
something-
is if you establish a local historical district.
That's true. However, many of the buildings, whether we're looking at Elm Street or the Village Center, ultimately will come before the town, and we will see if it's possible to get a historic district. But if they're on the town's MACRIS, or on the state's MACRIS database as being historic, they've been surveyed, and many of these buildings have 6-7 pages of historic documentation. It's unfortunate to just sort of let that dribble on by and say, because you're not in a historic district, go ahead and put those panels up.
Well, if they're that culturally significant, they would be in a historic district.
Well, until
but
it's
they could
voted
be-
upon.
Yeah, and they
we
could be
have-
off in the.
Yeah, they could be off in the woods somewhere
Yeah.
or elsewhere. but
It's my
I-
understanding that you could have very and numerous separate historic districts, to the point where
Well, I
some
think we're
historic
we're
districts
looking
have
at a couple, basically.
2 houses or 1 house in them.
What is the database that you were, if I may, what is the database that you're talking about? Because-
Macris.
Macris?
Yeah, it's have something surveyed. We've had, I don't know, 52 on Elm Street and 90 or, a little over that now, about 120 in the Village Center Historic District. Those are 2 that ultimately will come before the town to be voted upon as a historic district.
Would that be a reasonable criteria?
There's some on
Exclusion?
Chestnut Street too.
Yeah,
Or
Chestnut
if
as well.
not
Part of it.
exclusion?
It hasn't been accepted by the town.
No, what happens is the way it works with communities that have solar bylaws and with communities that have historic districts, local historic districts. The way it works is, the first filter would be the planning, the building inspector going through the solar bylaw. That next part is the sign off, because that would flag that it was in the district.
Yeah.
At that point, my understanding is that local historic districts, many of them have essentially design review committees,
Yeah.
the equivalent thereof, where if you
We're
want
not
to make a
quite there
change.
yet, Mr. Chairman, you know.
Oh, I
we're-
understand, but
we're not
you're-
in
you're
a
asking
historic district,
how
but
that can
I
be-
want to be able to sort of slow them down a bit before someone fills up a roof full of solar panels.
And I understand
district.
I understand where you're coming from, Ed, but there's certain legal constraints, and this is not the appropriate one. Where that comes from
Yeah.
is that local historic district, at that point, once it gets to the
Oh, yeah,
building
yeah,
inspector,
yeah,
in
yeah,
the same
yeah,
way that,
yeah.
in the same way that, if someone wanted to build a garage or something like that, and there was a river running through the back of their yard,
Yeah,
the building inspector would say, okay, you've met this criteria for the solar bylaw, but here we go, now you have another board you have to go in front of. And that board, if it was a historical district, would be essentially your board, the historical commission. That's how that works.
If this bylaw is adopted at town meeting,
yeah.
and then the overlay district is adopted at a subsequent town meeting, you could come back and revisit the bylaw and add something into it. The question I wanna pose for you is if a structure is historic,
Yeah.
how is it designated historic, by age?
By age usually, yeah.
Okay. If it's on the state database as a historic structure,
That's right.
if they wanna do any modifications to the exterior of the structure, what happens?
Well, what Harry is saying is correct. Technically, unless you're within a district and you have it's been approved by the town, then you have some restrictions you can put on it. But until that happens, I'm just trying to save a piece of the town's history before it becomes a historic district, if someone decides to load up their roof with these panels.
Right, but
That
if the
database
house,
means nothing.
if the house is designated by the state as historic,
Yeah.
are they able to modify the house without any?
Well, if it were on the National Register, I'd say yes, but we're not. You
Right.
know, we have a
I-
few houses in town that fall into that.
Right, I looked at the Mass one,
Might be able to
this
add something
morning.
that'll put an end to this.
Tilly, do you mind yielding to?
Frank Popolo again. I was on the zoning board for 5 years, so, chapter 48 precludes any zoning ordinance that would architecturally affect property. Zoning cannot dictate architecture, so there's no way that you could do this through zoning.
No, but a historical commission
Yeah, but it's.
can and
you're
does
looking
have
at-
that authority
you're-
under the auspices of a local historic
If
district.
you
Yeah, if
instituted
you're
an
in a
historic district, you could do it.
And that's what I'm trying to get to.
You're right.
I more than understand your concern, Tilly's concern, and that whole idea that you wouldn't wanna see a historic structure changed exterior-wise by
Well,
what can be.
no more
intrusive
than
by-
you would for demolition. For instance, we do have a demolition delay bylaw, so at least at that point, you can either talk to the folks who own the structure and see if there's other options or whatever, if there's funding from the state or something, before just tearing a historic building down.
What I found out, looking on the computer, which is
Yeah,
Which you can learn a lot.
pretty knowledgeable. There's an application that is required if you're going to do something on an historical house that they have on the list, and that's federal and state.
yeah.
So it comes to me that by letting people not, thinking that they can just put it on and no permit is required, is a fallacy, because it doesn't have to be a district. That's totally not right, according to what I found out on the computer. So that could be checked, and, Ed, you'll probably do that.
You know what,
Because
I think
that's-
that might resolve a lot of issues. I mean, maybe we should check into that and, ask town council.
They had even.
Just so that we have these answers all
Yeah, yeah.
wrapped up, before this comes to town meeting, because it does sound like something that, I'm sure everybody's gonna be concerned
You
about.
wanna
and
be
wanna
able to
know the
look at
answers.
it prior to it being, once the panels are up on your roof, you're gonna have a tough time getting them down.
That's what I'm afraid of, with the building inspector, for a nuisance. The building inspector isn't gonna say tear them down,
No,
and he's gonna do everything but that to try to smooth the problem away, but
I saw a hand go up, could I,
Harry, one more quick thing.
I saw a hand go up, let him,
You have a
let the
definition
gentleman
of
with the
dwelling.
hand,
You have a definition of dwelling within your zoning bylaws.
dwelling.
So you can, and it does stipulate it's a residential building for use by families.
The question was residential, is there a residential?
Yeah, you know, like you could use.
dwelling is.
Dwelling is, yeah. Sir? Hey, you need to state your name, you need to come up so we can hear you a little bit.
Tim Sullivan, Element Town.
Hi, Tim, did you sign in there, or would you after
Yeah.
you
I
make your
just-
statement?
Sounds like we've digressed from the original topic here with the, you know, as far as the verbiage of this.
Solar bylaw?
The solar bylaw slightly, but just a couple of points too. You may wanna take into consideration the construction of the solar panels, because a lot of them are not permanent installations. They're made so they're not damaging or defacing the property that's in question.
Are you talking about roof mounted?
Roof mounted, yeah.
Okay.
You know, obviously, it could vary with different companies and different applications, but I think a lot of them are not permanent installations. And also too, I think they're designed to absorb light, not reflect it. I haven't ever noticed an issue with that driving past them being a reflection issue, because the idea of solar is to absorb the light from the energy, not to reflect it.
Yeah.
Just a couple of points I just wanted to make out there.
Well, the street that I was on is the one that goes to Plum Island from 1A. Go over that street, I think there's a little school on it. Keep going, and it's on the left side.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the area.
It's
Oh,
a, yeah, it's
If-
a small cape.
If they were mounted at the rear of the building, then I don't find it as objectionable. But if it's out and it's a visual thing, and you've got a historic building standing there, I don't think you want solar panels on it,
Right,
so.
right. And the only way I think we can make that determination is through a site approval.
This bylaw
You can't-
cannot consider
Yeah.
roof-mounted solar panels on residential structures.
But
This
we're
is,
doing the bylaw, we could do what we want.
No, you can't, because
Why
the
not?
the
It'll
Attorney
just get
General's
cut
gonna
out.
scratch it out.
it'll just get scratched out and tossed. by
Not
the
a
attorney
special
general.
permit. This is our site approval. There's no way that I have read that you can't have a site approval as long as it's within reason. And we have a letter from town council that says that. One of their statements of fact, so we can certainly do this.
This
I'll
bylaw
show it to you.
cannot consider solar installations on residential structures.
I think the,
Alright, I'll show you what this letter is, so, Copeland and Page, 2011 it was dated.
2011?
Yeah. It also
Does it
goes
address
for
solar?
citing solar and wind energy
Okay.
facilities under the State Zoning Act. And, let me see if I can find it now. It says there, the statutory language is different from the provisions of 40A, Section 3, such as those regulating agricultural or religious and certain educational. And that statute does not flatly state that a special permit may not be required for the solar energy use. The statute also does not expressly state that solar facilities must be permitted anywhere in a community. Now, that's right there from, who signed this? Patricia Cantor.
Perhaps we need a clarification, and it would be best
It might
to
be
get
the
a
best way.
clarification prior to, town meeting, so that, we
If
have
this
all the
bylaw
questions answered.
is not ready to be recommended to selectmen, it's not gonna be heard at town meeting.
Well, maybe we should send it right away.
If this
before
bylaw
they-
doesn't go to
they do
town
any-
meeting, then I can open up my solar facility anywhere, anytime, and with one lawyer standing beside me, you're not gonna be able to say anything about it.
Right.
This isn't to minimize the concerns, but it's pretty darn near impossible to get an ordinance such as this, a bylaw such as this, perfect, first time around. That's just a fact of life, I think. And I think it needs to be understood that there probably will be modifications to it in the future. And the homes that are historic, that are registered state, federal, those are protected. You can't put solar on those unless you probably go through all sorts of hoops, but I doubt they'd allow it. Those homes are protected. The other ones, unless they're in a district and they are considered historic, but they're not in a district, they're vulnerable. But, you know, you guys have been working on this a long time, and I'd hate to see you lose it for your selectmen coming up.
I would hate for the perfect to be the enemy of the good.
People that buy antique homes, they don't buy them to make them look ugly.
That's a
They
great,
usually
that's a
buy
great
them out
point.
of, they
They,
like the
they
way
like
it
the,
looks,
that's a great point.
because they're not practical for any other reason.
To that I can attest.
Spoken by
As
a
I-
true historic homeowner.
That's a good, that's a
You
good.
have to love old houses to
Yeah.
live in one, and you're not gonna wanna
Which-
deface it.
Which is to say that the risk of this problem
It's
is
minimal.
diminished, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I say let's just keep it going, let's just get something on the books, let's get it approved. Like Rob says, you never get everything right the first time, but you at least have a foundation to build off of.
Yeah, Gordon
it's a very
Gekko
good
comes
one.
in here and
Well,
wants
we
to
set the
dig in.
medical-
And it's, there isn't gonna be, it's not
Yeah.
like it's full of holes and problems, there's,
You-
Right.
Oh, it
It's
isn't a
always
colander, there may be a place where it has a leak here and there, but I don't think, the historic homes gets plugged, that leak doesn't get plugged in this bylaw.
Yeah, but I don't
that
think-
gets
I don't
plugged
think-
by a local historical district designation, and, get.
He's just
bring-
trying-
Bring that there,
just trying to buy
like,
time.
next week, because, yeah, bring it there.
That's a good
Because
idea,
if you don't, then, well, at any rate.
I think you're hung up on the district, and that's not necessary.
I think that is the only methodology that you can use to,
Are you
do what
on
you're
the
talking
historical
about.
commission?
pardon me?
Are you on the historical?
No,
All
I,
right.
no, I'm not on the historical commission.
All right, my
but
question
I kind of
was,
follow this a little bit.
we sent the medical marijuana to town council, why don't we send this right now to town council?
It's gonna go to town
It's
council.
going to be vetted by town council.
I think so.
Yeah,
soon as
so was
we
the
send it
medical,
out
we
here.
sent that earlier.
No, we sent that in anticipation of the special town meeting,
Yeah,
Fall
after
town.
it was referred to the select board.
Remember, we didn't have the fall town meeting,
yeah, we were getting ready for it, yeah, I understand.
and this will go, well, if this gets recommended to the Board of Selectmen, this will go to town council in the same way.
Yeah.
If they
Well,
cancel annual
it
town
took us
meeting.
all this time to do this. That's why I'm being much more
It's very
methodical,
complex.
because it's just, it takes a long time.
You're absolutely right.
Look at how long these corrections were on the use schedule, that's been on there since the 70s.
Yeah. No.
Are there, any other sections that anybody has any problems or
As the-
concerns about
I
or
have
wants to
one
change?
One question.
Go for it.
As building inspector is defined elsewhere, is building permit defined elsewhere?
Building permit is defined right here.
Is it defined elsewhere?
Um,
And the question is, do, as Rob indicated,
Oh, double?
yeah, we're gonna describe it here, and is this definitive, or is it definitive in some other?
This
place?
is
If
how,
something changes.
well, this is how it's
would we have to
defined
change it
under
here?
this ordinance. As it says up top, the following terms, as used in this ordinance, are defined as follows.
It's, here, Bob, it brings in, including those governing solar energy facility.
Just
So,
brings
yeah,
it in.
state and federal building codes, including those governing solar energy facility. If you were to remove, including those governing energy facility, then you would remove the whole definition of building permit.
Well, I'm just wondering if it needs to be there, because the zoning bylaws are inclusive.
Right.
You don't have to say, and including page 3 and, you know, all the notes and everything else in it, because it's,
Building permit as described elsewhere in the code, I would say is as it is here. But we're, for the purpose of this bylaw, a building permit includes those governing solar energy facility.
I
So
don't,
it just
I don't
adds a
object
little
if it
bit.
clarifies, I don't object if it clarifies, but the idea of defining things in multiple places, I think Rob is right.
If you do wanna keep it, you certainly just wanna double check. Make sure it matches the other one.
Actually, I think the building permit definition and the building inspector is in the code and not in the zoning. It's in the bylaws. So it's not clear in the zoning at all.
Well,
Building inspector is described in the Georgetown code.
The bylaw.
You know,
and keep in mind, the exclusivity of this, where it says definitions, the following terms as used in this ordinance are defined as follows. And that is how it's defined. A construction permit
Just bring
issued
it
by an authorized building inspector.
Sure.
Evidence of the project consistent with state, federal building codes as well as local zoning bylaws, including this bylaw. I think it pretty much, it's pretty tight.
No,
That's pretty tight.
sure, I mean, in the next page, it says site plan approval, and I know that's defined elsewhere.
Absolutely.
But if it's clarifying for someone who is using this to determine what they're going to do, then it's helpful. So, I don't have a real.
Other areas of the bylaw, I just wanna
Right,
note
Howard,
for the
I'm sorry.
board is, page 10. There's a lot of discussion about, dimensional controls. So those reflect, the discussion of the board at the last meeting.
We struck minimum lot area of 3 acres, right? We struck that. Front yard, depth of at least 20 feet from the property line. Side yard, 20 feet from the property line. Rear yard, 20 feet from the property line, right?
The remaining changes were just editorial.
That, on that page 10 there, the dimension and density requirements, it says setbacks. The purpose of setbacks is to mitigate adverse impacts on abutting properties. Is that, it says for a solar energy facility, compliance with front, side, and rear setback shall be as follows. A roof-mounted solar is not a solar energy facility, is it?
A roof-mounted solar is a solar energy facility. Yes, it is.
According to our
Okay.
definition.
No, it is, according to the definition.
Okay.
No, that's what we have here in the definition.
Because it almost seems like like that would be, a facility is something that's built expressly for the purpose of commercial.
That's a commercial solar energy facility. which is-
Solar energy facility, for the purpose of this bylaw, solar energy facility shall consider both on-site solar energy facilities and commercial solar energy facilities. Such facilities shall include but not limited to transmission, storage, collection, and supply equipment, substations, appurtenant structures, transformers, service and access roads utilized in connection with the conversion of solar energy into electrical power.
All your wires, transformers, transmission lines, etc. That's your facility.
I thought we
'Cause I mean,
added
if you-
electric department in B.
Where are you, Tilly? I'm sorry?
I have a note here to add the electric department,
In the setbacks?
in B, compliance on page 3. Are we on that page?
We're on page 10 with setbacks. And
All right, I'm
hol-
over
hol-
here in
Hold,
three.
hold that thought.
All right.
We'll go back to it.
All right, so anyway, so you're saying a solar energy facility can be commercial or
It's
residential?
both, because we define it both ways.
Okay,
That's the generic term, solar energy facilities.
just sounds weird that if you put a solar panel on your house, you're now a solar energy facility. I guess if that's how we defined
A
it.
commercial solar energy facility.
On-site solar energy facility and commercial solar energy facility. On-site solar energy is a ground-mounted and/or roof-mounted solar photovoltaic installation for the purpose of electrical generation where the facility is an accessory use to the principal use of the property. So,
So it's still, the principal use is residential, but you could, but when you put a solar panel on your roof, now you're a solar energy facility?
No,
I
because
guess
you're
that's-
residential. If you're residential, you're exempt from that.
Okay. Just, forget it. I just had a problem with it, but I guess it's okay.
No, that's why I brought it up before. I thought commercial should have been isolated by itself in the definition.
Well, if it becomes a problem someday, it could be.
I think you really have to sit down and read the whole thing in its entirety in one gulp.
I think there's a whole.
And then I think it clarifies. The
I
problem
think
is
you're talking
sometimes what we're
apples
doing is we're hitting it, this part, that part, and I
But
think
we're
you have to read
talking
it.
apples and oranges if you're talking residential and then you're talking commercial. That's a whole different thing.
But we're gonna have the same setbacks either way. Is that correct?
No, because if you're residential, you don't have any setbacks, you don't have a site plan approval.
Yes, we do. Didn't we do the 20? Wasn't it?
This is commercial.
No, you said if it was residential, there's no setbacks? That's not true.
For a solar energy facility, compliance with front, side, and rear setbacks shall be as follows. A solar energy facility considers ground-mounted or roof-mounted. So, if you're placing a solar energy facility on the ground for residential use,
All
you
of a
gotta
sudden,
conform to setbacks.
site plan
And it
approval.
requires site plan, cause it's not roof-mounted.
And if it is roof mounted, well, your structure has setbacks that are bigger than that anyway.
It just sounds, the solar energy facility to me just sounds so
Sounds
commercial.
industrial,
Sounds so
yeah.
Yeah,
big.
it just,
Industrial.
yeah.
Well, the thing
That's,
is,
so that's my only problem, it's just combining those two into one seems,
it's a unique
Confusing.
thing that
Yeah,
we probably
it's
haven't talked
confusing.
much about before, about the whole idea of individuals generating the electricity
Right.
to support their household,
Yeah.
you know?
The setbacks, they're on page 10 on
I don't
the
know,
top,
if you
right?
have a, if you have a diesel
See,
generator.
these are for all
It's not
districts,
solar.
right?
No, that's not solar, but it's a,
So,
is that a energy
those are
producing
setbacks.
facility?
No,
You
that-
said we
those
don't
are
have
just
any?
backup for
Am I
this.
reading this wrong?
it's not very efficient to get your power from a diesel generator.
It's not.
You can bitch about Georgetown rates all you want, it's cheap
Oh,
comparatively.
it's cheap compared to other towns, too.
All right, well, I'm good with that, let's just move on.
Yep.
Now, Tilly, what were you saying about page 3? You wanted to move back to page 3? What did you say?
Yeah, I thought the electric department should be involved with this on B. And I noticed it wasn't added anywhere.
I thought we do have the electric department in here.
We do.
Uh-huh.
We don't have it under general provisions.
Right, we have it under specifics, right?
They're involved in
Involved in
Page of it.
decommissioning.
the permitting and decommissioning.
Mm-hmm.
Under compliance with zoning laws, ordinances, and regulations, which is 139B,
Yeah.
What page you on, Howard?
I'll be on page 4.
4?
It's on
7.
here.
Installation of a solar energy facility must meet the requirements of the qualifying facility power purchase rate and standards for interconnecting distributed generation as published by the Town of Georgetown Light Department.
There you go. That's where they get their,
On page 4, you read that from
Number
what?
7.
7.
right there, installation, that's where we bring them
Okay.
in. And they
Okay,
have
great.
those 2 documents that they have to fit with. I see a hand coming up from the audience. Mr. Fowler?
On your setbacks, something I thought of the last time I was here, and it's emergency vehicle access. And I'm thinking of your corners, is this a type of facility that you might want emergency vehicles to be able to get in and around? And I'm thinking if you've got 20/20 and you've got a corner lot that, let's say, is not 90 degrees, but it's maybe a 45 degree, would an emergency vehicle be able to get around that?
That's a
just-
question that would have to be answered by the professionals in the town.
And
And
they-
whenever we do site plan approval, we always send out those things for comments like that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they would, the fire chief would get back to us, and the police chief, the police department,
Excellent.
yeah. And that's part of site plan approval, that's what you're looking at, Gary, essentially, making sure that it all works out.
Didn't they say 50 feet we could do, and we could do up to 50 something about up to 50, and we decided to do 20
Who?
on
I
this
think
bylaw.
we did
Who said 50 feet?
50 for.
I think 50 was in the model bylaw.
If I can address the last comment from the public, it's written into the bylaw that they're required to provide a proposed installation plan, and part of that's location of the proposed solar system panels, arrangement of arrays, structures, transmission infrastructure, foundations, and associated ground equipment, fencing, exterior lighting, and access to them for maintenance and emergencies. So they can't put something in that can't be accessed during an emergency.
And most importantly, at the very, very end, if they put it in, they can't just abandon it.
All right, wait, I have another question, please.
What page you on, Tilly?
5, I wrote a note here about, and I did this because Newbury is being appealed, and I think this falls in line with that.
What is that?
I think that the locations of the floodplains should be identified in our site process.
I don't believe Newbury is being brought into litigation based upon floodplain, but it's written into the bylaw that any site plan approval for a solar panel facility, for a solar energy facility, must meet all the other boards and commissions, regulations, and requirements.
You know, and I
Well, if
also,
you're in a floodplain, you have to go before the zoning board of appeals anyway,
all right, but,
because you're in the floodplain district.
I added also location of active farmland and prime farmland soils, wetlands, permanently protected open space, habitat areas, critical natural landscape. We never addressed any of that. Wildlife habitat, and that's one of the criteria that the appeal is being, reasons for it to be appealed is, as I understand it, wildlife habitat in this particular area that these solar panels were placed on farmland.
Mm-hmm.
And, so I thought that should have been added. In this list of-
What are you suggesting that
The
we add,
site,
Tilly?
in the site,
Doesn't your site plan approval process cover that?
If you look under,
Maybe, maybe not. I don't know.
on page 11.
We don't regulate farms.
If you look on page 11, item E, clearing of natural vegetation shall be limited to what is necessary for construction, operation, maintenance, per best management practices for natural and/or development areas otherwise prescribed by applicable laws. Earth removal, erosion, stormwater control. Next item, natural buffer and wildlife corridors.
Mhm.
Natural buffers should be maintained slightly above the highest level of the solar panels. Shall be designated and constructed to optimize the existence and maintenance of natural buffers and wildlife corridors.
I mean, I think that's really the issue. Isn't, wherever you put ground-mounted solar arrays, it's gonna have an impact on whatever's under it.
Right. I think what's happening in the one Tilly's referring to is the fact that the 40A exemption to farmland, some people are under the impression that they don't need any permits at all to put things on a farm, if it's pertinent to the farm. There's an agricultural exemption. And it's kind of a unique little nuance to law when you deal with the agricultural exemptions like that.
But on that basis,
Yeah.
I don't think we should try to psych out what the court is gonna
Oh,
come
no,
up with.
No, don't go there, don't go there,
yeah,
because what's happening is basically you can't regulate a structure on a farm. And interestingly enough, if you were to make, well, I don't know, 100 structures on a farm, and they all roof mount, can you regulate it? No one knows the answer.
I
We
would
won't
ask
know
an
till the
attorney.
court. Don't even bother asking the attorney, he'll only give you an opinion. Wait till that court
I
case
got
is
this
done and you'll
from,
find out.
hold on a second.
Mr. Chairman?
I got this
could I-
from the state model bylaw. Sorry, Rob.
No, that's right.
I
I'm not
understand what you're
taking it
saying,
out
so
of a
you'd
hair.
like to add something.
Yeah.
What is it you would like to add at quarter
That's what
nine?
I'm saying.
What is it
K,
you would like to add? And where would you like to add it?
after K,
What
You've
page
got-
are you on?
What,
on page 5.
on page 5,
There's a K on page 6.
I don't see it.
Okay, let's see. Well, on my 5, I got, am I into the right stuff?
Overhead utility lines.
what section are we adding it into, Tony? What
We're
is
adding
the
it
heading
into,
of the section, rather than the letter?
5, on page 5. Okay, wait a minute. Let me see. It's something about site approval.
That was what was presented at the February 26th meeting. So the revisions may be a slightly different page because of it.
Yeah, I did.
Are
I
we
went
in-
over everything.
Are we in
that
the installation plan, or,
No, I added this after, I scratched this. This was my worksheet.
okay,
Site plan approval review
So
criteria.
you're past fees. Are you in section K, financial surety? Are you on?
Proposed installation plan is
Right,
7.
so what, yeah, that's.
And then there's A, B, C, D, E, F, G.
Right, so you're gonna be on K
K.
on page 6.
Yeah.
K on page 6, there is no, oh, okay, overhead utility lines?
Okay, so, well, we could add it onto the bottom here, and it could be O.
Well, what do you want to add, Tilly?
I wanted to add, first, I had written down location of the floodplains, but you're telling me that's gonna be addressed. The second thing I had was locations of active farmland and prime farmland soils, wetlands, permanently protected open space. Prioritize habitat areas and biomap 2 critical natural landscape. A core habitat mapped by the National HESP.
Core habitat?
So
Can you
that-
tell
that-
that I didn't make this up?
Right,
So that's
right.
information you want shown on the proposed installation plan.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, yeah.
an important wildlife
The-
habitat mapped by the DEP.
So, I'd say if you go through that list again, some of those are already required under site plan approval in terms of the requirements that need to be shown on the plan.
Yeah.
If you wanna add, NHDES, zone 1 and zone 2, then we certainly can.
How would we add that, Howard? What would the wording be?
Prioritize habitat areas.
Priority habitat
Well, she's in the
areas?
section that says proposed installation plan.
Right.
In addition to the information required pursuant to section 183, all pertinent documents shall include the following information. So this is above and beyond what's required in section 83 for site plan.
Right.
And you can just,
I
you
will
could
make
write
it
in,
no, I
you could
guess.
write in, NHDES zones, delineation of,
Well, I have NHESP, is it different?
National Heritage Endangered Species Program.
Yeah, that's what I have, NHESP,
SP,
okay,
if any.
okay.
And you're talking about the priority habitat map?
Right. It's a critical national landscape core habitat map.
It's called priority habitat map.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. Concom take that into, under theirs?
It's in
Yeah,
their
I think we're reaching here, we're kind of stretching our,
Well, they wouldn't
Mr.
unless
Chairman,
it was wetland, right?
yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
100-foot buffer?
Well, you're not gonna get priority habitat unless it's wetland, but anyway.
Just a couple of questions. Are you planning on voting on this tonight?
Yes, if it doesn't vote tonight, it dies.
Okay. With that being said, I think, and this is just, I'm just sitting here listening, you either need to let this thing die or move it ahead. To be adding all of this,
Yeah.
whether legitimate or not, Tilly, they may be great suggestions. You are asking for trouble to be adding this at this point in time, and I think the dialogue needs to be wrapped up, and I don't know who these people are here for, but I'm
They're here for the citizens petition.
I would humbly recommend to the chair that we move, either table this for a second or close it for a second, whatever, but let's address these people who are last on the list and get them.
Majority of people are here for the Elm Street situation, and I think to sit through 2 to 3 hours of this definition thing it's a drag on everyone else here, on the public. So if you could find a way to either hold off a little bit, or at least hear what that other situation is on 5 Elm.
Well,
would be
I'll
pleased.
ask this, how's this? Does anyone have any comments about the solar bylaw? Going once, going twice, going 3 times. I will, just so that we can live or die in LA, I will now accept a motion to approve and recommend the bylaw as it is currently written in its draft form.
Yes.
Well, didn't we make some amendment, didn't we
Yeah, we
knock out
made-
ground-based?
Yeah, there's been 1 or 2.
Right.
With
So
the-
with those.
So the motion is
amendments made,
to,
it's-
with amendments
those-
made.
Yes.
So-
I'll move that.
Motion to approve
And I'll second that.
with amendments.
Specifically, just those 2 amendments were all we really made, right? The
Yeah.
Removing ground-based from.
Made.
And you're
With
not
those
putting
two
the
mentioned,
habitat
yeah.
in?
Nope, we're not adding that.
Nope.
That's
Oh,
not
well, I'm
included in.
voting no, you got it.
Well, wait till I call it, because it was, made a motion was Tim. Tim made the motion, and Bob seconded. And all
In
in,
fact, I got 2 more I could add.
well, all in favor of, they probably should have been added like last time, but all in favor of approving and recommending this to the Board of Selectmen,
Aye.
say aye.
Aye.
No,
Aye. All opposed
me?
and all abstaining.
Abstain.
So let the record show that the board recommended this to the Board of Selectmen with a vote of 3 to 1 to 1. And can I have a motion to close the hearing?
When I'm chairman,
And-
So moved.
remember this.
Being chairman, Tilly, means that if it's gonna lose, it's lost. That's how it is. You've gotta move this on. Motion to close the hearing?
Motion to close.
Motion to close the hearing by Bob,
Seconded by me.
seconded by Tim. All in favor of closing the hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Nope.
All opposed to closing the hearing? No. All abstaining.
Abstain.
And I sympathize with the people waiting. It's been a drag for me as well. But I just think that we've got to finish this, and I think that I had 2 more things that, you're not even putting in the habitat, that it took about 20 minutes to read. So I think that was a waste of time.
Well, I understand, Tilly.
Good
I
luck.
Certainly understand. Let the record show that that hearing has been closed. Sometimes it's a lot easier when you write these things out and get your comments to Howard, and he can have them written out, make it a little bit easier. Moving on to, at great public demand, we're gonna skip over registered marijuana dispensary, and we're gonna skip over the accessory apartment.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Why are you skipping over that?
We're
because,
coming back to it.
because everybody wants 5L. No? Well, okay, you know what then? We're going to marijuana dispensary. If you can't decide, I mean, I wanna keep it fair.
Ridiculous.
There was a notice in the paper saying that this hearing was supposed to be at 7:15 tonight for 5 Elm.
on or after?
You'll have a 2-hour delay here from 7:15 to 9:15, and we're not even, you're still going on with additional stuff. I mean, it's wasting up a lot of people's time, including
We
mine.
have several elderly people in our audience, some stepped out, but I really.
Well, I'm hearing objections from the audience for bringing it up. I wanted to bring it up.
Stay up this late.
Bring it up, this is ridiculous.
Is everybody in consensus that we can bring up 5L?
Well, you're the chairman.
It seems like the neighborly thing
I want
to
to try
do.
to be as fair as possible.
Seems like the neighborly thing to do.
Let's open the hearing, public hearing. This is the initial opening for the public hearing. This
Hey,
is
Rob's in on this
an
one.
initial opening for a public hearing. That's why I'm pointing it out.
You might wanna
Or
get Faith when they went out.
5 Elm Street.
They went out.
And Howard, would you read the public notice, please?
Can I make a suggestion that we waive the reading?
Absolutely.
Just proceed.
All in
It was
favor of
noticed in
waiving
the-
the reading of the public notice, say aye.
Aye.
Waiving the public meeting. Notice. Reading.
Is that
It's
for
lengthy.
dispute resolution?
Where
I'm
was
the
that
owner.
20 minutes ago when I needed it?
I know, I'm the owner.
Hi, would you state your name for the record, please?
John Maglio.
Hi, Mr. Maglio.
Thank you, thank you. Brought some trinkets to get everybody excited.
While he's getting his documents out, we have this for display up on the board. It's a copy of the citizens petition that was distributed, and the proponent of the citizens petition can describe how many votes he got, but it's on the warrant, it's able to be on the warrant because he received a number of certified voters that signed. In brief, it's to see if the town will vote to amend the town of Georgetown zoning bylaw to remove zone designation commercial B from portions of land, Assessors map 10B, lot 34, I think for discussion at tonight's meeting, everyone will be referring to it as 5 Elm, and replace those same portions of land with the zone designation of residential A. So here's a picture of the current zoning, proposed zoning, and a picture of the structure as it exists.
That's so cool.
That's it?
Essentially, the bottom line is you bought a property, it's split the district. Half of it's commercial, half of it's residential, or some portion thereof. And you're basically asking the town meeting voters to remove the commercial designation so that your entire lot can be residential.
Exactly.
That's a tough one. Let's
I
have
think
all
it
kinds
sounds-
of discussion on it.
I don't know.
What's
I
your
mean-
feeling, Rob? This is the first one you're on. Go for
Well,
it.
let the applicant do some more explaining.
Well,
I'd
first I
like
want to
to
say
hear from the
thanks to Howard, and I want to say thank you for Patty she's the liaison of the zoning board. She originally gave me this idea, which I wasn't aware of. It's after dialing it back and thinking about it, it's great. Let the community make the decision. It's gonna cost me $0. I was originally gonna go full force with a variance, use variance, which I'm very familiar with. I've done before in town for another property. So I'm just gonna focus on my construction, get it ready, hopefully move my kids in, and ask the town for help. Because I've been in this town for a while.
Rod?
Just some questions. So what is it that you, beside the obvious, are gaining by doing it?
I'm gonna move my kids in and move my family in there.
But if it wasn't changed, couldn't you still do that?
It's commercial, so legally, I can't move in there. So, I mean, you can't live on a commercial zone property. But
It
I
would
took
require
the-
a use variance.
Right, it would require a use variance, which would be possible. I've been to the ZBA and got there, which was great. Usually you apply to the ZBA and then go right at it, but they invited me to come prior to I filled out my application and gave me some ideas. You know, just, like I said, dialed it back and said, you know what, I'm gonna take their advice and try this. I think I think like I've said, I've been in this town for a long time. I mean, I can remember when it was a supermarket at Dunkin' Donuts. I've been in here for a while. I've owned property here. My parents have owned property here. I've driven by this house for a year before I decided to move on it. And this is the right thing. It's just, there's some issues with it. It's commercial. Originally, it was a house. I mean, I have plans showing that it was a house years and years and years ago. So I'm just bringing it back and doing the right thing, and I need help. Or I could go the other way. I mean, the other way is apply for variance and just go right at it. And I mean, Howard's seen my my language for that use variance. I know I can get it. It's like it's close, but I think this is the right way to do it. I think the community wants to see something here, not a Subway or a commercial or an attorney's office or something. I think they want to bring it back to what it was, so this seems good.
I'd like to, not right now. I don't know how you're gonna handle the meeting, Harry, but I'm very interested in what the people have to say.
Absolutely, I'd like to hear from the board first, though.
Yeah,
Tim?
yeah.
Questions, concerns, comments?
And two, let me dial it back to another thing. I buy and fix homes. I buy old homes. I would in a minute put solar panels on this house, but it comes down to budget. It comes down to budget. So you're wrong on that.
Why do you need us if you're taking this to the
I don't
town?
know. I mean, I think the process to rezone something at town meeting requires planning board blessing.
The
Right,
selectmen
requires a
referred the
report.
matter, the selectmen referred the matter to the planning board for a report back, just as if it's a zoning change to the bylaw.
They wanted to hear it.
Because it will change the zone designation.
Required of us to do it.
The only thought I would have is, are we opening up, like if we change the zoning for him, will 6,060 other people
We aren't doing
for
it.
us?
Yeah, the
Town
community,
meeting is
the
doing it.
community's doing it. And
We can't change that.
by doing the citizen petition, I mean, I think it's 20 or 10, the town clerk, it's like 20 or 10 signatures. I mean, the majority of the community is different than 20 signatures. I mean, I've got quite a bit of signatures, but the community's voting for it and saying, hey, we want to see a house there, or we want to see a Subway or a restaurant. I know through being a former zoning administrator for a different town that if I wanted to put a Subway there, legally I could. The use schedule says I could put a restaurant there, I could put bed and breakfast there. But for me to put a Subway there would be a lot harder coming to you guys than to put a residential home there. It's not set up for it. The parking calculation is there, the septic, it's the amount of money for me to bring that to use as a commercial place for a restaurant or something, it's just not feasible.
No,
And
I
that's why I was
understand.
sitting there for 3 years,
Yeah, I mean-
until me,
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with the idea of
Right.
doing that. I just, I guess I just don't understand why you're talking to us.
I don't either. Sometimes I guess you just, I guess when you have to do like a citizen petition, which this is new to me,
That's how it works.
you need to go through the process to get a blessing,
Yep, you have to go through the
and
process.
then it goes to the selectmen. But as a former voter also, you see amendments and you say, hey, the FinCon says it's okay, selectmen says it's okay, so mine will hopefully say planning board, historic commission, selectmen,
Selectmen
and
are,
then-
the selectmen are
My-
looking to the planning board.
Right.
My
They
opinion,
like
my
to get a
opinion
report.
will be influenced, be swayed by what the neighbors and
The neighbors are on board, and I appreciate they're all on board.
you get, that I'm fine with it.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, Tim, this is a zone designation change, so the zoning district and overlay map is gonna change, and the planning board oversees that map. So that's another
Does it
technical.
happen right at the corner of the,
Well, it's up here.
Yeah.
This is the existing zone designation. You can see how it bifurcates the site. And this is what, if the citizens petition is approved at town meeting, it would do.
looks
So,
okay. Seems
and
fine to me.
as the opinion of the town planner, just on this subject, this line is somewhat arbitrary. arbitrarily drawn. It doesn't follow any property lines. And we've seen what has occurred with the Georgetown Building Supply with the second structure in the back. The Danvers Walk building is actually over here. It's partially in the residential district and it's partially in a commercial district.
Which
So-
makes it unique, and that was one of my arguments for the ZBA, is that a unique lot, you know what I mean?
Typically zoning just draws a straight line from point A to point B, and if you're on this side of the line, you're this, if you're on that side of the line, you're that.
Right.
And it doesn't necessarily make sense. And over the years, up on Jewett, Tenney Street, there's been, well, at least one residential subdivision that was put in. Can't remember the name of it. It's the last road before you get to Jewett Street on the left. And that was zoned commercial, and the voters overturned, we let the current owners rezone it as residential and build houses there. Seemed to be fine.
To build houses, right.
Yeah, I mean, I think the residents that live there aren't real happy with the stone crushing operation that is within earshot, but that's always a risk you take in a situation like that. But yeah, I mean, to move zoning lines a little bit, it doesn't seem like, if it makes sense, as it certainly seems to in this case.
And
Why
on
not?
that is the development you're referring to, they changed the zoning for the housing.
Right.
Changing this matches the zoning to the rest of Elm Street. So that's, from a planning standpoint,
Makes more
it's
sense.
much more succinct and smart and thought out.
Right.
It's not spot zoning, it's just changing to what surrounds it on three other sides.
Yeah. Well, if
And-
the neighbors are for it, I'm for it.
And am I correct that this ends up going to the town and they're the ones that decide?
Yeah,
Right.
Correct.
Correct?
Right.
yeah.
Town meeting vote.
Yeah, my concern about it was
did.
that, I've been through a lot of, and some of these neighbors have the buffer, our bylaws say that you need a 100-foot buffer between zones. At the time, we were having many, many hearings with, the building supply in Danvers, back in the 90s. We did not consider that as a buffer of the 100-foot requirement because it was all commercial. And it was right up to the street, Elm Street, where it was commercial. So now you're kind of, in my mind, you're moving that line of the 100-foot between zones, because now you got, if it goes through, you're gonna have that residential, and it's gonna be a budding commercial instead of no buffer at all. And believe me, unfortunately, like you mentioned, Howard, over in,
Jewett
on the
Street.
other
Jewett
side of
Street.
Jewett Street, that was a big mistake for us to allow residential there, because there's many problems having so close to business and commercial and manufacturing.
But this house is already close to that
Tilly,
anyway.
what are you getting at? I don't understand.
There is, we have on our books,
No, I
a buffer
understand that. I
between
understand that.
residential. Now, for somebody to move in there,
Yeah, I know.
Which is
if
gonna
the
be
com-
me.
If the business, if you're gonna be, disturbed by, noise or activity or lights or whatever it is.
But that's life.
Direct your
You
questions
buy,
through me,
you
sir.
don't have to
John?
per,
Direct your questions through me, please.
Chairman Harry,
Thank you very
you
much.
go through life that you purchase property because you choose to.
Yes, I do. Okay,
I
as
don't-
far
I
as this
mean, I don't
discussion is
get it.
concerned, can I just say a couple of things? Sure. The first thing that I notice here is, there is a commercial district.
Correct.
That involves a limited number of parcels. I'm playing devil's advocate here. To lose a commercial property in the town, although it may be to your benefit, may
Correct.
be to the detriment of the town. Certainly something that the voters need to take into consideration when they're making this decision.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out that when we did the library addition several years ago, were it not for this property being commercial, wouldn't have had anywhere to go. Nowhere to go.
Right.
It is a very unique historic structure, and now it is owned by you. And when I heard about all of this, I was actually,
Excited.
I was excited that, you could get what you wanted, and you'd get the residential structure through the use variance route, because then the ZBA could condition it to have a historic restriction on it. However, I don't think that was suggested by anyone. And it just seemed interesting to me. It seemed like a unique way to go if the ZBA were actually able to meet the criteria for the use restrictions, for the use variance, which I'm not 100% certain it does. But anyway, that's for them
I
to decide.
disagree on that because.
That's for them to decide.
There's
And we
many
can-
elements.
We can agree to.
There's many
Certainly,
elements to a
certainly.
use variance.
But this
and-
is a unique way to go.
Right.
And I wouldn't stand in the way of it. It sounds like this should definitely go to town meeting. And
And he's
does
been-
anybody,
yeah.
does anybody feel as though this shouldn't go to town meeting?
Absolutely not. I think it's terrific.
I appreciate
Is
it.
there anyone in the audience that feels that this should not go to town meeting? Are there any other, Mr. Fowler?
I'm not sure. I mean, you just brought up some excellent points about the way it should go.
Hmm?
You did, so,
But he asked.
no, I'm a good man for.
Sure.
I just wanted to second those. I mean, that the ZBA would be able to put some restrictions. My thoughts as I'm sitting here and listening is perhaps not, the gentleman purchasing and doing it now, but in the future, somebody else purchases it, has a problem with the commercial next door,
Well, they don't have to buy
that's it. The ZBA, if they had gone through the ZBA, those things might get ironed out, just as what you were saying, Karen. So I mean, it's
That's absolutely.
it's a
right.
real,
Yeah,
you know,
it's a twister.
it seems easy. And it's easy
does.
for you.
Seems
And
too easy.
Just for some,
Yeah.
a little bit of history, because I was just reading it, I think it was in 1767, that the general court made it that you could do it. Before that, the selectmen controlled the warrant, and people couldn't do that. And I guess because it was a problem, the general court said 10 citizens can do this. So I mean, it's,
Absolutely.
Listen, I don't mean.
I just want to say, you had some excellent points.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but listen, I'm not that old, but I've been in this town for a long time, and I've seen this town go from to where it is now, and this property's been sitting for a while because it was commercial. And you brought up the point that the town could use it as a library. That's great, but after that, it's been sitting. And like I said,
Yeah.
I have a pretty good idea about this town. I've been here for a while. I know I keep saying that. I'm not an old guy. I'm a young guy, but I'm the guy to make this happen. This is ultimately what's going to happen. Is it's going to be a home. I'm going to move my kids in there. We've been in this town for a while. We've lived here. We own property in here. It's going to be a beautiful home, and the community's behind it. I wouldn't be that strong about it. I don't even know why I'm here. But for me to ask the town to be on the warrant article, I have to be here. And I appreciate it, but it's just,
Thanks for
I'm
coming.
I'm making the investment here, and I know it's the right thing. And when someone says something negative about it, I take it personally.
No, you
And
shouldn't.
I shouldn't, but no one's forking the money, and no one's making that property beautiful, because it's gonna be a beautiful piece of property. Because before, it was boarded up, you drive down 133, and all you see is a boarded window. That window isn't boarded anymore, and it's gonna be a beautiful home. And it is what it is. So,
Well,
I mean,
you
I
know,
might
I
take it
would-
personal. I might take it personal, because
Oh, no, I'm
I'm
bringing-
gonna make
I'm-
it great, and it's gonna
Bring it
happen.
up to counterpoint.
It's
That's
gonna
all.
happen,
Bring it up to
so-
counterpoint.
I really would like to guarantee that you would not complain about the business next door.
Dana and I are like
That's-
peas and carrots.
that's what I'm looking for.
Listen, you might not think I know what I'm doing, but Dana and I are peas and carrots.
The
I buy
reason
plenty
you
of
have-
beer over there.
The reason you have grass and trees in the back is the buffer.
No, I went through the building file. I understand that.
Yeah.
But my new neighbor Jay, I mean, I've talked. I mean,
You're not gonna complain.
listen,
because
I got 4 girls under 8. I can complain about that all day if I want. Dana's a great guy.
You can complain about whatever you want to
Right.
complain about. This is your project, you know
Right.
where it is,
And
That's
I've
the
done
way-
my
I complain
homework
about
and
how late it
listen,
is and how we have
Go
four more
for it.
things to
Listen,
go
I
through
drive
tonight.
in this town, I drive down 133 before I purchased, and I saw that house, I'm like, I'm the guy to make that nice, and I'm making it nice for the town, and I'm getting the support, and I
Outstanding.
appreciate it.
Are you gonna keep the columns?
Absolutely.
I just want to note that included in the packet was a letter from the Historic Commission that was in support of this. And obviously, there's other members in the audience that probably want a chance to speak.
Absolutely, I'm sure they do. Members of the audience, does anyone like to?
I just have 3 sentences, Harry. Number one, this is the
Ed DeJarnitz.
Ed DeJardin. This is the oldest street in our community. It was here long before the town ever was settled in 1838. This is part of West Rowley, basically. We've just done, over the last 2 years, a 52-house survey of that entire street. Many of the buildings being built in the 1700s and majority in the 1800s. So you've got the heart and soul of the historic town in that, basically, in that one street. Unanimously, we brought this up before the Historic Commission, and they said they would support this 100% as a residence. And for years, we've been looking at that building, kind of dreading the day when someone would come in and, as this gentleman said, make a pizza parlor or whatever out of it. So to know that he is going to step into it and make a home out of it, we're absolutely thrilled, and I think the entire community ought to be grateful as well.
Any other comments from the public? Would you state your name for the record, please? Are you
Chris
signed in?
Christie. I'm the president of the Georgetown Historical Society. As you probably know, we have our museum right across the street from this building, so we're very concerned about what happens. And the board of directors is unanimously in favor of this, so long as he retains the historic character of the building, which is what we believe he is doing.
May I ask what your guarantee on that is? What
No,
your guarantee?
I understand his intentions are to retain the historic character and in favor of his zoning in that assumption. Yes, I'm correct, sir?
She's looking for a response here.
Absolutely. I'm gonna do everything I can to keep the exterior is what it is, and that's my intention.
That's your intent?
Okay. He has full support of the
The only
board
thing
director of the historical
The only
society.
thing that's really going to make a change is the back section, which I got my demo permit today. My wife picked it up. They approved it. John approved it, and that's coming down this week, which is a lot newer than the building. It's probably, I'd say, the 20s, maybe 30s.
It's ready to fall down now.
It's ready to fall down. I wish I could keep it. The square footage is great, but it comes down to budget. And I'm not willing to spend a lot of money on rebuilding it. So it's coming down.
Okay, I'm Rick Detwiller. I'm a member of the Historical Society, but also a preservationist, an architect, historical architect. I live in town, but I'm also a descendant of a great-great-grandfather whose house in Easton, Pennsylvania has now got a Dunkin' Donuts on the ground floor. And so I just want to point out the fact that this is preserving the original appearance and use of this building that is a major focal point looking from the Historical Society front door. And if you have seen that painting from the 1850s or whatever, looking down Elm Street, nothing has changed except the Congregational Church, which disappeared. But it's still intact, and it's a major kind of focal point for the town and an eventual historic district. So keeping it residential is, I'm all in favor.
I would just request that anybody that's here speaking, if you come forward so the microphones can pick you up, and please make sure that you sign in.
Frank Popolo, 129 Pond. Just one quick question. Were the butters notified of this hearing tonight?
Yes.
And they chosen the one, so everybody here has been chosen.
Yes.
I'll even come up front.
You better, because I couldn't even hear you say that.
Did it like you make it? Hi, I'm Rita Harris. I live at 13 Elm Street. If you look at the residential section of his property, it backs up to the back end of my property. And I just want to address a couple of your concerns. number one is that 100-foot buffer. I'm not sure what the scale is on this map, but I'll bet there's no 100-foot buffer between that commercial district and 9 Elm Street at this point. 10B35. Is there 100 feet there? I
No,
don't
because there
think so.
couldn't be, because it,
Right, so my point is,
They
you're worried
just-
about losing something that's not there.
but
The
there
other
is
thing
some,
is-
excuse me a minute, there's like 20 or 30 feet there,
Well,
in the backyard of
it's
his,
not 100 feet.
no, it
The
isn't.
second thing is, you're concerned about losing a small commercial district. If something were to go in there, a pizza parlor, Dunkin' Donuts, whatever, what happens to the property values around it, the residential, is they drop. And we're all sitting here with our white hair, we're not gonna live forever, we're not gonna own those houses forever. When they resell, they're gonna go to people who can't afford to keep them. It's the eventual destruction of a neighborhood. So, yes, you're losing one little commercial space. But if you let it stay commercial, if you let it be used for that use, then it's the destruction of a whole neighborhood. So you weigh one against the other. And that's it.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, great, so let's bring it to the board and,
I just got a quick comment, if you don't mind, Chairman.
go for it.
The,
Bear in mind, I'm.
what attracted me to this place
All
is,
this is
it's
town
really, I know I gotta do a spiel at town
Well,
meeting, don't I?
yeah, and that's where you really
But,
have
I
to-
mean, if you walk in this
We're
house, I
all
don't know
so.
if anybody's been in it when I was in the library, but, I mean, there was a bathroom upstairs, there's bedrooms upstairs. This is a house through and through. I mean, there's no glimpse of commercial in this house. The only glimpse of commercial in this house was jewelry counter that, when you check the books out, it's residential through and through. It was built as a residential home, then it was changed over to a horse stable, then it was the Adams Hall, but this thing just blazes as a
Spalding used to
residential.
do his woodwork in
Yeah,
there.
and then I talked
then
to Everett.
have the business across the street.
Bought it in the 50s. But, I mean, through time, it was changed, but even if you walked in there today, even before I bought it in January, you went in there a couple of years ago. It's a house inside.
That's good to know.
No more
That's
than a
good to know.
commercial.
Is the floor plan in these drawings, is that the existing floor plan?
No.
That's proposed, and I have existing if you'd like to see it. Same thing.
Right, so
What is
just-
that little nook like over there in this? Is that changed? That's something that has to be addressed?
That's the property that we're talking about.
Let's see, this one doesn't have it.
See that?
Okay, I'm gonna limit the discussion now, and I'm gonna ask the board to make a recommendation or not. Tilly,
This is what it is, Tilly, up on the screen, what you're looking
Oh, you
at.
see what I'm looking at?
what's that, Tilly?
Is that a difference in measurement?
I can't look at that. What are you looking at here?
What Tilly's looking at is reduced, it's enlarged up on the screen. So this is the
When you
lot.
enlarged it, did you lose this? You have it on your packet there in the bottom. See here? Doesn't it look different?
Of course it looks different, because one is with the shown and one is without.
This is the current zoning, and this is with decision
Actually,
being
after,
approved.
if it would be changed, that's what the vote is. If it would have been the same, that's what. Yeah, it looks like it's magnified, is what you mean?
Yeah, when
Yeah,
you
it looks
blew it
like
up,
it-
it
yeah,
lost
'cause
it,
of
I
the
think.
light.
Yeah.
Chairman, I'll
Would you like to make a motion, Rob?
Yeah, I'll
Would
make
you like to make a motion to recommend this in a report to the Board of Selectmen?
Excuse me.
Can we, we'll try to do this with
I'll make
a
a motion
from
to approve the rezone of 5 Elm Street to all residential, to make that recommendation to the selectmen.
I second that.
made by Rob, seconded by Bob. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously.
Great.
Thank you, gentlemen.
See you at the town meeting.
Used to buy something.
Thank you. Motion to close, this was a hearing, right?
Thank you for bringing your book.
Yeah, motion to close the hearing. Tim makes a motion to close the hearing. Seconded by Bob?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's that time of night. It's 9:30. Paid starts. And all in favor
Thank
of,
you for this gift. Is that yours?
all in favor of closing the hearing, say aye. Motion carries, hearing is closed.
So,
Hearing is closed, motion carries, opening the marijuana dispensary.
these guys are here.
I don't really know. Well, opening the registered marijuana dispensary. Reopening that hearing.
What about the
It was
affordable?
continued from February 26th. You want another vacancy on this board? It'll happen tonight.
Easy, easy, easy.
Yeah, 9:30.
The
Registered marijuana dispensary was continued from
Dispensary.
February 26th.
There weren't any,
There were no changes made since the last time. All in favor of recommending it as written, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Nope, I can't abstain.
And with one abstention.
Semi-unanimous.
Yeah, semi-unanimous. Let the record show that that was 3-0, excuse me,
4.
4-0 with one abstention to recommend to the board, to the recommend
Selectmen.
to the Board of Selectmen. Motion to close the hearing,
So moved.
made by Tim, seconded by
Second.
Bob. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
Abstain.
One abstention. 4-0, one abstention. Hearing is closed. Opening the hearing for the accessory apartments. This hearing was opened originally on February 26th. Howard, I believe we had some comments and some written,
there's correspondence that was
Correspondence, thank
included in your packet from, it was a memo from the Georgetown Zoning Board of Appeals regarding the accessory apartment bylaw.
can I summarize it, gentlemen, by basically saying that, for the most part, the ZBA has sent us some information which basically says that, and correct me if I deviate from the truth. Essentially, they look at what you're doing and they think it's a wonderful idea. But they look at what the changes to the existing bylaw that you're proposing to make, and essentially, it's not ready. They aren't detailed enough, they don't include enough of the important elements that would need to be made. While they fully support, and I can reflect that, while I fully support it too, the idea of what you are trying to do to create more affordable housing. Essentially, what's happened is, you're trying to modify with very little wording, or as little wording as possible, a bylaw, and unfortunately, it doesn't address a number of concerns that the building inspector has, a number of concerns that the ZBA has.
Okay, well, could we address that?
I'm gonna give you 5 minutes to do it. And, then I will.
With my associate's permission, I'd like to distribute this to them for their review.
Sure, we haven't seen it yet?
No,
We haven't seen that?
you've not seen my responses to their questions, which I think will allay a lot of your concerns.
Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Usually, we don't accept any information like this except a week prior.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
We've been sitting out here for a couple hours, whatever it was. I think to give us 5 minutes is a little bit restrictive on, letting us present our proposal.
It probably is,
Yeah.
but,
So-
that's the way it is.
Do you have another
But
one?
the other people got as much time as they wanted.
Yes.
And I think anybody that comes in here, I haven't heard that they're restricted to a 5-minute.
Would you like to discuss this for 5 more minutes?
I don't know how much time it's gonna take us to discuss
I've seen
it.
communications from the that basically tell me that
Here, oh.
this is not ready.
So why
not
don't we
ready.
discuss that?
They're asking to have
Harry,
it
why don't
passed
we
over.
discuss that?
Yeah,
Because,
Well-
that's not what it says here.
and that's not what I read, so
Yeah.
I don't know where you're getting it
That was how
from.
I took it.
Well,
I'm sure other
well,
members
let's
might
start
see
with
it
the
differently.
first concern.
What's wrong?
Okay,
What do you-
from
Let me
Jeff
share it,
Moore.
that's all.
Oh,
'Cause I
why,
had
we
it.
don't have enough copies?
No, he,
Oh.
I gave it to.
Yeah, why-
Mr. Moore's first concern was that he a suggestion that the units be restricted to over 55. The guidelines presented by by DHCD for accessory affordable apartments preclude discrimination due to age, so I don't think that's possible. Okay. His second concern is that there should be a clear understanding that the owner or future owner has the ability to convert from an affordable unit back to an accessory apartment or remove the unit altogether. If you look at my response, you'll see that there's part of the deed restriction, or as DHCD refers to it, it's an agreement that restricts use of the property. There's a voluntary termination clause built into that, which is here. If you read it, you'll see that the landowner has the right at any time to voluntarily terminate the special permit for the use, and all he needs to do is to give adequate notice to his tenant.
Hey, Frank, can I just step in? So the information you provided in the bracket is language
Is coming
From
from the
DHCD.
regulatory agreement from DHCD that they
Okay.
use. Okay, so these are the facts. If you see, his third concern echoes his second concern, so that also applies to that. And then he goes on, his fourth concern involves the conversion of a unit from one use to another should require a special permit review by the Zoning Board of Appeals. I'm not really, this one was a little confusing to me, but I think his concern here is that if, you know, it's gonna be granted for either an in-law apartment or for an affordable apartment. It's not for both.
I think
And
it's
he
not
can-
clear
and he
in the
can-
bylaw, that's the problem.
Oh, it is clear in the
That's
bylaw.
not- well-
Well, I think it is.
It
It says either in the bylaw. I don't know how much
thought-
clearer it
I
can be.
actually thought it was pretty clear.
Yeah,
I was
well-
surprised at some of the comments here.
Right. And I think it's very clear. And so it's either one or the other. You can't have both because the DHCD will not approve this for the subsidized housing inventory if the units are rented to a family member of the owner. So it takes the whole in-law situation right out of play there. Again, he's, on his point 5 is that a single permit could be issued for both. That would be confusing and difficult to track because people would be flip-flopping back between an in-law and an accessory and affordable, and there'd be no way to really keep track of that.
And you'd have a deed restriction on your house for a family member.
Right, I mean, that's just not doable. From Dave Kapnis, the rentables, he's concerned about the size of the rentable, or the rental property. And we're keeping the same dimensional restrictions that are in place now. The only conflict I see here is the DHCD requires slightly, if you had a house that was 2,700 square feet and you were gonna have a two-family, I mean, you're gonna have a four-person family move in, they'd require 2 bedrooms and at least 900 square feet. And that would, any house less than 2,700 square feet would not be allowable under that would not be allowable under our current bylaw because it has to be a third of the livable space. So if it was an 1,800 square foot house, you couldn't put in a 900 square foot apartment. So that's the only, we're crossing a line there. I've sent this to DHCD for their comment and review. I haven't heard back from them yet. But that's the only place that I can see in my research where there's any real conflict. We may hear differently from them. From John Mediver, what properties can apply? Existing accessory, new accessory, or legally existing, any property can apply. And I think what this would do would give an incentive for people in town who currently have an illegal apartment or have an apartment that's not being used because they don't have a family member that wants to use it, for them to come forward. And that would put these additional units on our tax rolls. It would also put, it would also give, a real opportunity for affordable properties dispersed through the community. And even if the unit is illegal, eventually they're gonna get caught when they refinance, so it would give people a reason to come forward.
When you say it's gonna put it on the tax rolls, actually, a two-family doesn't necessarily
Well,
doesn't appraise any higher than a single family.
Well,
More
it would be a-
often
it
than
would
not,
be a-
it goes
would be
the
a-
other
Yeah,
way.
it wouldn't be a two-family, it would be an
So it's not
accessory
the
apartment.
tax, that there is no tax.
I pay more taxes on my house because we have the apartment, so.
You're adding 900 square feet.
Did you add square footage though to do
Well, I
that?
added a lot, yeah, for other purposes,
Well,
but
that's
the,
what
bo-
you-
but
that's
the
what you
bottom
paid
line is
for.
that, when you have an income potential to your house, it does drive the value of the house up. It makes it more affordable to more people, and I believe.
It's like
it
a
will.
swimming pool. Some people will pay more, some people
Yeah.
will say, well, I gotta
I-
fill it. Yeah.
Right, But an
One of those
appraiser won't,
Really?
an
Well, I-
appraiser won't say that's worth any more money.
What about the assessment? That's
Well,
what
I
we're
don't know-
talking
I
about,
don't know
not
how-
taxes.
I don't know what an
Assessment,
assessor
not
does.
appraisal.
I would
I don't
tend
know
to
what
differ
an
with
assessor
that, but,
does.
okay, well, we can agree to disagree on that one.
Yes, and Rob agrees too, the assessed value would be less of a
Just
two-family.
my experience personally with our house, that was two and turned into a one, and that's what we've experienced. That's just my
Yeah,
experience.
well, I think
Well,
if you have income potential to any property, it increases its value, so. But anyway, does the applicant have to come back to the ZPA for the change to affordable? I'm not really sure, again, what that question means. I think that if it approved for an in-law and they wanted to change to an affordable, yes, they have to go to the ZPA to get the change. If it was an affordable and they wanted to go back to an in-law, yes, they'd have to come back. You can't have both. It's in either situation. So,
And the ZBA is the only one that can grant them the in-law status.
correct.
So yes, they would have to if they,
Well, number 3 here says the removal of the unit should be by the owner's right with no hearing required.
Where's that?
That was the
That's
third
previous
comment from
page.
the previous page.
Right. Well, I mean, he can remove the unit, but if he wants to change it to if he wants to go from an affordable to an in-law, he has to come back to the ZBA. If he just wants to not rent the apartment anymore and just vacate it, he can vacate it on his own. He doesn't have to keep that on his property. He can just notify his tenant, give him adequate notice, notify the town that he's doing it. The special permit goes away because it's no longer in compliance with the terms of the special permit, and it just disappears.
If he terminates his lease on an affordable housing unit and it's not occupied for 2 years, he can still continue to rent it as an affordable housing unit because of the deed restriction, right?
If the regulatory agreement is still in place, but
Right.
if he negates the regulatory agreement, which he's doing, he's rescinding it, he's taking it back off of his deed, off his registration, then he can't rent the apartment because he's no longer,
Then it's an illegal apartment.
right.
Yeah.
The crux of the thing is that we have you're familiar with the inclusionary zoning bylaw in town?
I think so.
Okay.
10%,
Yeah.
20% for
Well,
ISA.
basically what that says is that in order for those apartments, that any units that are created by that are affordable have to be be able to be put onto the HSI, okay? This says the same thing. It tracks with that perfectly.
Mhm.
So,
I get the intent.
okay, so I mean, the reason we did it the pure and simple way is because we're rafting to the DHCD, because DHCD can change their terms tomorrow.
Mhm.
And if we spell out everything in this bylaw, we could turn around and find ourselves out of compliance with them.
Don't get me wrong. I think the problem is you haven't spelt out enough for the ZBA for the bylaw. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, I don't think this should be tacked on to the accessory apartment bylaw. I think what should happen is the accessory apartment bylaw, in and of itself, should be squared up and cleaned up so that it has some monitoring. And I think in addition to that, over and above that, there should be another category of apartment, affordable apartment, that should be a special permit through the ZBA that can work in conjunction with their own, brought on the side of that. Not against the idea, believe me, you guys know I'm not against the idea. I think you know that, and instinctively, I think you know that. But I just don't think the execution of how this is happening is workable. I think you're gonna create a lot of problems for the ZBA. But let's go further on. Let's go further on, because some of those are brought up.
Let's see, how long can the portable unit be rented in perpetuity? Question marks, here's the guidelines, for the DHCD guidelines, that it has to be a minimum term of 15 years, and it can be into perpetuity. So, depending on how the zoning board approves the special permit, they can approve it for a minimum of 15 years, or for 20 years, 30 years, or into perpetuity.
But then I can remove it anytime I want.
Right. But I mean, it's,
That's the part I don't get.
well, it is a little bit of a catch-22, but the bottom line, but you have to notify your tenant, give them time to, the tenant has to have a lease as well as part of this process. So you can't just throw your tenant out saying, I'm not gonna do this tomorrow, get out. You have to give them time as well as part of the regulatory agreement. So, you're right, I mean, if somebody wanted to end the period of perpetuity, but then they would also lose, they'll lose the apartment if they do that, so.
No, because they can go for another special permit and
What, for the in-law?
move their kid back in. Their children moved in.
Yep.
For a blood relative. But I just don't understand how you can just lose that deed restriction. Maybe we need to hear that from, I'm sure town council would explain that to the ZBA if this passes.
Well, it's in the regulatory agreement. Those terms that you see
That it
that
can
are
be
on
left
here,
in?
that it can be, that's how it can be done. That's the,
So it's a required minimum term of 15 years.
yeah, they
It can be
require, in
lifted
order for this to be
at any
accepted,
time.
well, this is a guideline by DHCD. They won't accept this onto the HSI, or the SHI. Paul, I know you're gonna jump on me. Keep saying it backwards. It won't accept it onto the HSI unless it has, the permit is granted for a period of at least 15 years. So this is one of their guidelines. This
Right.
isn't in the regulatory agreement.
The guidelines drive a deed writer.
Right.
And the deed writer is sitting on a property, and the deed writer is 16 pages long. And all the things that we're going through right now are all clarified in the deed writer.
Mm.
So it's not like this is a mystery. If
Right.
you read the deed writer, you know exactly what.
So I sign up for the deed writer and I put the deed writer on my land, but then a year later I change my mind and I can lift it.
There is a, like
Even
like
though
you
it
said,
says
it's a
this is a
catch-22,
minimum.
but the deed writer is designed mostly for houses, and with a house, it's different. It is 15 years of perpetuity, that's what we have
Why
with the
can't I
town.
lift that if it was on my house?
Excuse me?
Why can't I lift it if it was on my house?
Because you basically don't own it. But you own it, but you can't sell it without going through the, in this case, the Affordable Housing Task Force or the trust. In other words, you own the house, but you don't control the selling of it.
That's if the whole house is
Is under the-
restricted by
right.
this deed writer.
That's what he's talking about. He says, well, why can't I just sell my house? You can't, because you're not allowed to sell on your own. You have to, and it has to be sold at an affordable price. And that's, all of those restrictions are in the deed writer. So anybody that tried, I mean, it took him 10 years to get to the deed writer where he is right now,
Oh, no,
and
we
it's
changed a whole
pretty
bunch of
bulletproof.
them. I know.
How
Remember,
come
we
we've
paid
never
big
seen
money
a
to
copy of
replace
the
the old
deed
deed
writer?
writers.
I can get you one,
Yeah,
it's
we can
16
get you one.
pages.
Well, be nice to have one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys probably
Yeah.
should have one, yeah.
But essentially, even though it says minimum of
15, that's.
15
what it
years, or if somebody was building it, since it is new construction, it would be
Well, this
30,
is to
right?
get on, this
Perpetuity,
is
yeah.
their,
Yeah.
in the deed writer, it won't, and it's not a deed writer, it's a regulatory agreement.
Okay,
And
so it's not a
DHCD
deed writer.
Well, it goes onto the deed, but it's not technically a deed writer, and DHCD will be quick to correct you if you call it
What
a
does
deed writer.
DHCD stand for?
Department of Housing and Community Development. They're the people who control the subsidized housing inventory and decide what goes on it and what doesn't. So as part of their guidelines, this comes from their guidelines of what will be accepted. Now, I can also hand you these as a couple, these are the guidelines. I did bring a couple of copies of those with me, if you care to peruse those.
So essentially, that is what, those guidelines are what the ZBA will be locked into using for conditions on the special permit.
They will, the regulatory agreement will, yeah, it'll be that, it's a combination of the two. But the regulatory agreement is what really drives the whole thing. They've got a model regulatory agreement that they want towns to use, and they do allow a little bit of adjustment to that before, but that's, I can get you that. If you saw that, you would realize just how specific this whole thing is, and how it would be almost impossible to tie our bylaw to it, and make them, in verbiage, go together, because it changes, You know, we'd have to change our bylaw every time they change theirs, so that we could get these units onto the housing
Well, wouldn't the
inventory.
bylaw reference it?
Yes, it requires it. Bylaw requires that the units be accepted onto the subsidized housing inventory. So there's where your regulation
Yes, I
component
get
is.
that.
Okay, that's where your
But
regulation.
What it doesn't specify is how that works.
There's, in the guidelines, and the guidelines will tell you how that works. The owner has to go out and do a lot of work to get it onto the inventory before a special permit becomes effective.
What are you looking for, Harry?
It's just a lot of times the bylaws, and you heard a lot of the solar bylaw discussion
Yeah, I heard
tonight
about that, yeah.
about what it is, how it's permitted,
Mm-hmm.
and here, it just may not have enough information. What you've provided is very helpful. It just, I think some of the confusion coming from the ZBA is not knowing that DHCD covers a lot of this, right?
Well,
And
we
you're,
could try to
you're,
explain that to them, but when you get 15 minutes with a group, it's very hard to explain a pretty complicated issue.
Well, when
Right.
you have 21 days to issue a decision, it gets pretty complicated too.
What's that?
When you have 21 days to issue a written decision, that gets pretty complicated too. And referencing all of these things, if it's not established beforehand what it is you need to do,
Well,
that can be
all they
pretty
need to do
difficult.
is to tell the owner to go out and get the units onto the SHI. It's not up to the zoning board to do anything. If they agree to the special permit, it's conditioned that special permit does not become effective until those units are approved for the.
How would I build it?
You know,
Okay, so I want to add an in-law apartment, and I'm going to make it an affordable unit. And how would I get my building permit to build it?
you can build
Before
it,
I get-
You just can't occupy it. That's what, the building permit, you can
My
build.
special permit says I have to get on the SHI before I am issued a building permit.
No, a special permit.
Special permit.
No, my special permit says I can't get a building permit until I'm on the SHI.
Approved by the zoning board.
Right.
That's actually
So I
backwards.
can't get a building permit to build it. How do I get on the SHI?
You don't get on the SHI until you actually build it to, and rent it to the specs that are actually in the regulatory agreement.
But you just said it was the other way around.
You would come in, you go to the ZBA, get your special permit, it would be conditioned, okay? You would put the regulatory agreement onto your property. That would satisfy DHCD.
To get it on the list.
Yes. You can get a building permit, I did this on my house. You know, I could build the room, it's the use of that room that requires an occupancy permit. Okay, when it comes time to get the occupancy permit, that use has to meet zoning before I can get that occupancy permit. So now that you've got the special permit and the inclusion onto the SHI, you can get your occupancy permit for that unit. Okay?
Okay.
Also, and the other scenario is somebody who has an apartment, currently has an apartment, and is renting it illegally. Now, if he comes in and he gets this granted.
That comes up later.
Right, well, and it meets the criteria, then he can legally rent that apartment in compliance with the regulatory agreement.
Mhm.
Okay? It's.
Move a little further down.
Yep. Where were we?
Well, the sample deed restrictions that was vetted by town council, and now we find it's not a deed restriction, it's a regulatory agreement.
And it's been produced by DHCD.
Right, right.
Okay.
Define who would enforce violations.
Right. Well, any violation would obviously fall to the building inspector, as he's the zoning enforcement officer in town. So if I find out my neighbor's got an illegal apartment, I call up John and say, hey, John, you know, there's a guy over here renting this apartment illegally, and he goes out and finds out that they're not in compliance, and he's the one that fines them $300 a day for a zoning violation. That's his job. Unfortunately, that doesn't fall to anybody else in town, so there's no way you can get around that.
Who determines that these units are safe, sound, and sanitary, or?
He will. I mean, this doesn't, the special permit doesn't forgive anybody from any building codes, sanitary codes.
How come you left out baths or the kitchen? I understand, but why didn't you add bath to the kitchen
What is that?
in the beginning of the bylaw? that we have, you only have kitchen?
No, it's
On
gotta have
A?
all the facilities of an apartment.
So should it have bath in there written?
It should be, I'm not
It's
sure what
only
you're looking at.
kitchen, that's all I see.
That's the original language of the accessory apartment bylaw.
Yeah, that's not what we did.
In a lot of ways, as I understand it, in-law apartments are usually just provide a separate kitchen and bedroom with the meals being prepared in the main house.
Because it's family, but
Right,
now it's.
right.
But if it's gonna be for affordable housing, it has to meet a whole different criteria, much more elevated, much more specific.
Firewalls, et
Yeah.
cetera.
Right.
I would add that.
Separate, two separate entrances.
Yeah,
I
bathroom-
think you
bathroom
guys
is-
have done
Which
a lot
is-
of work, and I really appreciate it. I think the scope is right, the purpose is right.
Absolutely.
I think-
No question.
And I really think that my feeling is to let town council look at it and see if we can work on it. I wanna do, and I'm sure you guys do too, everything so that we don't have to use CPC money to buy an affordable unit like we did on Central Street.
Yes, sure.
And I did not vote for it.
Well,
Let's not find ourselves in that trap again, which we spent like, what was it, $100,000?
Yep, thereabouts.
Quarter of a million.
$100,000 to
Quarter of a
buy,
million,
to
right?
save it.
To protect them.
Right.
It was
We
already.
kept- We kept two from falling off of the list.
Right.
You realize where we're coming from. If you look at the housing production plan that was approved by the selectmen, it states in there one of our major missions is make sure we do not lose any of the affordable houses we have right now.
Right.
And the reason that it cost $100,000, that was sold incorrectly and approved by some previous selectmen. So we were
Right.
just correcting the ills from back. So it
Which-
costs some money.
Which explains why you need so much of this detail that
Yes.
Harry's talking about.
But
That's
the detail is attached to this through the
The
regulatory
agreement
agreement.
is gonna
Yeah.
take care of it.
Which, again, when we sat down with this, it wasn't that we were trying to do the fast and easy way. We pulled Saugus's conclusionary, I mean, it's affordable
Accessory.
accessory.
Yeah.
We pulled Barnstable's, we looked at a bunch of them. And our feeling was that if we came to the town with something that was so complicated that nobody could understand
Right.
it,
Right.
and so restrictive that it wasn't gonna work,
No.
that was gonna be our downfall. Apparently, we've fallen into another trap here, because,
Well,
you know, it,
I appreciate all the work that you put
yeah,
to
I
it.
mean,
and-
there
and
is,
the
there is
planner
more
has
to this
been
than
in on
it meets
too.
the eye, if you have, but you have to look to
You
the.
need more than a paragraph. You need less than a book.
But I still think,
That's the
I'm willing to,
problem.
to vote to send it to town council and they're going to do that, the selectmen. Let's see what they come back with, and then I really don't feel
I
comfortable
mean, we're
yet
still
to
waiting to hear
vote.
back from DHCD too, I've sent it to
That
them.
would be a good thing too.
Want to just hit the last thing, the zoning enforcement would fall. One of the things that the building inspector says, number 7 there, all affordable units must comply with the building code for a separate dwelling unit. This includes egress and fire separation. An accessory apartment can egress through the primary residence and does not require fire separation. Basically, the bottom line of what he's saying is some of the, what may work as an accessory apartment for an in-law apartment may not easily convert to an
Affordable
affordable
housing.
unit. Yeah.
Right, so you may have to put a fire code sheet rock. in that
Right,
kind
you may
of
have to,
stuff.
you may have to add a bathroom, you
Right.
may have to add a.
Well, I mean, those are building
Sprinklers,
codes.
would you need that too?
Right.
And this doesn't forgive any building codes, it doesn't forgive any health codes.
Oh, no, I'm not,
So,
I'm
and
not saying
I
that.
mean, I've been through this personally, so I understand the process. The
But it's-
apartment we built
one
has
and the
2
other.
means of egress. One of them happens to be through our house.
Hmm.
So I would not be comfortable with anybody living in that apartment that wasn't a family member.
Right.
Okay, that's a personal, I mean, somebody else may want to rent to somebody and let them walk through their house to leave the
You
house.
won't allow it.
You can allow that, that's not, it's perfectly safe.
Yeah.
If you want to let people walk
An
through your.
apartment cannot egress through another unit and must have a 1-hour fire separation between dwelling units.
Well, that's the building
And
code.
and
that's-
this is the building inspector, and.
Well, I mean, I don't
that's the
have that,
problem that
I
you
don't have that in my apartment right now.
Hope your neighbor doesn't
But
call. and find
it's
out.
not an
No,
apartment.
no,
it's
I
a-
had it approved, believe me,
No, as an in-law,
as
you
an
don't
in-law.
need to.
Oh,
As an in-law, you don't
Only
need
as
to.
the,
Right,
as an
exactly.
assistant.
well, this is an accessory
the
apartment
problem when
under
you
the
have-
same terms, and if it was a two-family, I would agree with you, but it's not a two-family, it's an accessory apartment.
I think the problem might lie when you have an accessory apartment, an in-law apartment And then you go to turn that around, thinking that you can easily do it, only to find out you can't.
Well, that would be up to the building inspector.
Absolutely, that's up
I
to
mean,
the
that's up to
special
the
permit
landowner
granting
to figure that
authority.
out on his own.
And the ZBA
Right,
would
if
have
there's
to
a
look at
separate
all of
building
that.
code that applies to the situation, then I would say, yes, you have to apply with that building code.
Well, John Mativier certainly says there is.
Well, if he is, then that will be the case for anybody who applies under here, because it won't change that. So, I mean, my situation, like I said, I have an in-law, he gets in and out of the house through our house, his apartment through our
Right.
house. But he has to have two means of egress because of a fire, in case of a fire.
Sure.
If,
But one of those means can be through your house.
right,
In this case, in an affordable unit, it cannot.
I don't know.
According to
what
John.
Well, and that may very well be the case. I don't know where he's coming
An
from with
apartment
that.
cannot
I mean,
egress
I
through
had
another
a
unit.
big misunderstanding with our current, he was, when I did my apartment, I had a big problem with the building inspector back then too about this, and he was proven to be wrong.
Who, John?
No, this was years ago. So, I mean, what I had to have, because when I have a garage underneath, so I had to have fire rated sheetrock between any living space in the garage. He wanted me to fire rate sheetrock the entire garage. I said I didn't have to do it. We went back and forth, and he was wrong, and we went
You
on
have
from
to do
there.
it on the ceiling.
Ceiling and any wall that adjoins the house. So,
Well,
but anyway, we won't go there.
Yeah, we'll get a
But
little
any-
detailed there.
Does DHCD have anything in their guidelines about?
So you can read the guidelines.
Egress?
Yeah, I think they have, I think you can't
But if
egress
we
the
had a
house,
copy
but
of it.
I have to double check.
I think they leave that to the
Outside,
building
is it-
code. If John has if there's a building code that says you can't do it, then they can't do it.
Yeah, he's gotta follow that.
It
Would
must
you,
be a
would you
state-
like to go
state-
through any of these, or can we just look at it in summary that there are a lot of concerns from the ZBA members? And basically they're
I think
saying
you might be
they
overstating
need-
that a little bit, but, because we met with them and I mean, I have questions, I don't know whether they're concerns or not. I mean, one of their other concerns was monitoring, who's going to monitor it? And you'll see that will be left to you can hire an outside professional to do that, and the landowner can bear the cost for that outside professional. So,
It won't be the responsibility of the ZBA
It won't be the-
vendors
yeah.
or the court.
Well, and what kind of a person would do that? Who
there
would
would
the
be,
landowner, who would the
well,
homeowner
there would be like,
hire to do that?
it would be, there are people that we have somebody who does that now for the,
Rentals.
for the housing, for the rental subsidy.
Guys do?
Well, we
The
hire, they
rental
hire a
assistance
person.
Well, we know, but, yeah, the affordable
Well, what
housing
if I
trust.
had one and I just didn't do it?
What do you mean?
Well, I have an affordable unit and I just didn't didn't pay anybody to monitor it.
Well, you have to under the regulatory agreement.
Right, but
Right.
who'd bag
And
you
every
if I
year, the
didn't?
town has to certify to the state that it's been done, and you hire somebody to.
Who does that?
I'm sorry? The
Who in the
selectmen.
town
The selectmen would.
certifies that?
Well, either the selectmen or somebody designated to do that. So it could be the trust, it could be the task force.
Yeah,
I don't
probably
think
be-
the selectmen would be too keen on it.
How do we know?
I think that you're gonna find that
Is
the
that
trust,
specified in the bylaw? I mean,
It's specified in the regulatory agreement.
But
And
not in the
it's
bylaw.
specified in the guidelines.
it just says you have to have a monitoring agent, and usually that's contracted to, you can either have somebody from like the housing authority, like they do in Tewksbury, like we actually have what is it, coastal properties or
Coastal
something
home
like that.
buyers.
So if I
that
was
does
the
monitoring.
person that had this unit, I got my permit, I got my occupancy permit, bang, good, I got it. Now, I have to pay someone to monitor.
Mhm.
What if I
Oh, here it is.
didn't want to?
We
You
haven't
don't have
gotten to
any
that.
choice,
Who's gonna beg?
we have your address.
How do I get
Harry,
caught?
go to the last page.
Go for it, I am on the last page.
All right, look at, from DHCD guidelines. from
Right,
Sharon.
local project administrator, the local project administrator
Right,
Yeah.
shall
that's,
monitor LIP-approved accessory
Yeah.
apartments.
right, that's.
Who's
who-
the local, project-
You can hire people to do it.
no,
or-
in the bylaw, who is the
It's-
local
it's
project
defined-
administrator?
It's defined below. Definition of a local.
Someone, it says it's someone who's
Yep.
responsible, we know
This
that.
could be a local
It could be
official, a
official.
local housing partnership, or a
Who's the
staff
bylaw
member.
specifying that person is? Where's the definite, you've got the definition, but you don't have that position.
It
Is it the
defines the
building
function,
inspector?
Barry, not the person.
Is it the town administrator?
No, it's defining a function, not a person. You can either use a local person to do that, you can hire somebody to do it, and if you hire somebody to do it, then the person that's actually renting out the property has to bear that cost.
Would that designation be done as a condition in the special
Yes.
permit?
It is, it
And
is,
does that have to be inspected every year?
yes.
Yes, it's reviewed every year.
And to get to your
What if I
question,
did-
And
if
who
you
is it
didn't,
that
Yeah.
gets the
what,
inspection?
what's the recourse of the
Reports,
town?
What, how does the town even know if it didn't happen?
Because you have them on the SHI. They're already on the subsidized housing inventory, and the monitoring agent has that name already. And so
Well,
they're gonna call them
with
up.
all due respect, there are 4 units shown on the SHI, on the subsidized housing
Yep,
inventory.
they don't belong there.
That don't belong there. They've been on there for
13 years.
13 years.
West Street, we actually cleaned that up.
1 year after the,
Harry, we
one
just-
year
we
after
just
the
cleaned it up
cleanup.
This year.
Oh, yes,
But they met,
13
they,
years
they
later,
were on
they've
the
been
SHI
sitting
because they
there.
met requirements
They
for
met
a time.
requirements. for-
They failed
But
to
now they
meet
don't.
requirements 1 year after they
Yes,
failed to
yes.
get the permit.
Yep.
Okay,
But they stayed on there for another
There
12
was
years.
nobody watching the store at that point in time.
Who's gonna watch the store now?
Well,
Well, the bylaws
These
not telling me.
guys.
These
right, but the
guys-
bottom line,
Can we,
What guy?
Yeah, it's, Harry, you're going down a rabbit trail there.
Well, I just think that the bylaw isn't putting
it's,
out
it's,
who's
it's,
gonna
car-
watch
it's
the store.
covered in the guidelines.
It's
If you read the
covered,
guidelines,
The
it'll tell you.
guidelines aren't in the bylaw, is my point, but anyways.
You name it, what you do is if you name the local project administrator.
I
They're
don't.
the one,
The
just listen,
bylaw
here,
has to.
bear with me, they're the ones that are responsible for making sure that it stays in line. They come to the town every year, they lay down the paper to, I think, whoever we designate, they should lay the paper down in front of. I've audited their rents, I've audited their tenants, they're in compliance. They report to DHCD that we have 6 units, they're all in compliance, they hand them the paperwork, DHCD is fine, and we go on for another year. It's the local project administrator who is responsible for doing that work. You tell the applicant, just like with Mira's project up on Longview, they have to hire somebody every year, they pay somebody to monitor their affordable rentals up there and certify to DHCD that they're in compliance.
So
This is no different than that.
Will DHCD give us a list?
Yes, they do every year.
Give somebody a list of who is like authorized to inspect
Yeah,
these
there's
units?
one, yeah.
And if the person
Because
with the
presumably that person.
There are
needs to be
organizations like
approved by
CHAPA,
these-
there's actually a bunch of them around. These home consortiums can do it. It's any, and there is, if you look here, it does define
Type of person.
the type of person.
It doesn't tell you who. You can decide if you want to do it locally, or you may want to use his spare time to do it, who knows? But I mean, that's the kind of thing you can do.
If the person with the affordable housing unit doesn't pay for the monitoring agent, do they lose their special permit?
Yes.
That's in the conditions.
How did they get caught?
Because they're audited on an annual basis.
Because they have to come in every year
Audited by who?
by the local project administrator. And the town knows that that's supposed to come in every year. So if it doesn't come in,
To who? To you guys?
well, it's in the
Not
by.
specified.
Again, I think you can designate somebody in town. They prefer the selectmen.
Guy named Joe.
Gotta volunteer.
It's in the
It could be-
bylaw.
Okay, it's in the guidelines there. It could be the Affordable Housing Trust, it could be the task force. They're designated to monitor it. They're the ones that come back and say, yes, this is it.
Absolutely.
The legwork is done by somebody hired by the owner.
Right.
Howard's been working
No,
with you
but
on
it's
this
the-
bylaw too, hasn't he?
Mr. Chairman,
Hasn't
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
I've
did we
been-
have a
I've been
comment?
coordinating.
I'm sorry.
No, he's
Was there a
volunteering
comment?
to do
Yeah.
the,
Oh, you're gonna do it again?
Gary Fowler, on the subject you were talking about, you've got into Longview and monitors. Does anybody in this room know who monitors up there at Longview?
I do. There's actually 2 monitoring agents. There's one that actually just takes the applications and processes them. There's another one that makes sure that the apartments are being rented properly. And they're both out-of-state firms.
And
they actually visit on site every year, and they go through the apartments.
Theoretically, yes, but it actually, I was trying to make contact with some of that, but it turns out that if you look at the way the agreement was written, only the town administrator can actually make the queries into that monitoring agent. But I can get you, I would love to get that information, so I'll get you the information if you'd like to find out.
Before I'd sign off, or if you don't need my sign off, before I'd be happy with this, I'd want like that resolved as to who that person is.
Well, it'll be different.
I mean, why not? We're a town, let's, if
Right,
we're
we're
gonna
working-
accept this.
Right now,
let's-
we're working with a company called Harbor Light Community Partners. They're a nonprofit community development company that builds builds affordable housing. They would be somebody that would be qualified to do something like this. The owner would go to them and say, I want to hire you to do my audit and present this to the town on a yearly basis that I'm in compliance. What do you want to charge me? They'd give him a number, he'd pay them every year. That they would come to the town and say, here, come to the selectmen and say, here it is, these units are, this unit is in compliance. And that's really all that needs to be done. And it has to be done, I believe, every year on March 15th.
But my bet is the selectmen aren't gonna say, oh, pick me, I wanna do it.
No.
No, it's gonna.
Well, maybe
We
you can
kinda
add it
have
on
to-
town meeting
would
floor.
have-
You can just add it right in, town meeting
I
floor.
think last time we
Add
were
a-
here,
make a
I had
motion
asked
to
for what the price of the rent
modify
is
it.
per 80% of the income. What's the average price for the affordable? Because a lot of people hear
It's in the
affordable and
it's
they
in the
go,
guidelines.
beside, you know.
It's different based on the size of the family and the median income for the area.
That's what I think you should have
roughly
prepared for the
$1,000.
town meeting discussion.
What's in the guidelines?
Do
Yeah,
we still track Lawrence?
Yes, we're in the Lawrence median. That's our Lawrence regional income area.
Gary?
One more question that's
Sure.
been on my mind on this. Who decides who the tenants are? Does the homeowner get to choose his tenants, or does the state just place the tenants?
The homeowner should have
Homeowner
that
gets,
decision.
he has to,
Because they live in
he
the
has to do
house.
an affirmative, marketing plan for his rental units. And that has to be also approved by the local administrator. And he decides who he's gonna rent to, but that tenant has to qualify under the law.
But he can discriminate.
Well,
And see, when I read what you submitted to us in the last meeting, there was something about a paragraph that included about no discrimination. And it's like, anytime you live in a house, it's your house. If you wanna rent it out, you can always discriminate. You can say, I don't like his hair. You can discriminate for any reason you want if they're, if you have a two-family and you live in the house.
No, that's the wrong word.
Okay, kids,
Use
it's
another word.
very, very late. And the 5 minutes grew to 40. And, I
Which you
think,
deserved.
thank you.
and I think that the board should,
I think you're close.
yeah.
I think
Well,
there's just a few unanswered questions.
I think I'll hear a motion to, take a vote to recommend this to, the Board of Selectmen.
That's right.
Did-
For
Making
town-
that motion?
Yes, and.
Tilly makes the motion. Is there a second to that?
Second.
I'd like to
Second.
see town council response if, when you send that to them. I'd like to see what they have to say.
It will be, it's on the warrant,
Yeah,
and it's gonna be put together with all the other bylaws sent out to the town council.
yeah. But I
Town,
think-
and it's my
Looks like a
understanding
form.
that town council's auditing, editing, everything of the warrant is only no closer than 14 days before town meeting.
Oh, jeez.
So,
If I could put it, it's on there as a placeholder.
So see, this, I don't feel comfortable voting until, somebody gets, this is gonna work from town council, because there's a lot of legalities here. And DHCD has to give us some kind of input, because you really need a lawyer to, give you strong direction.
Yeah.
I know you guys have done a lot, I just feel like we're not gonna get there before the.
I
spring
wish
town
that they
meeting.
could-
I just think it's,
in
you presented
just-
it to us pretty close. You're not leaving us much time, and then the selectmen.
Well, I mean, well, this is the time frame for it. The task force only got active last September, so.
Right, but I'm just saying.
We've been running pretty hard.
But it wouldn't be the end of the earth, would it, if it got, if it.
I know, it wouldn't be the end of the earth if it didn't happen this time around.
It's better to have it
No, I.
completely well-defined,
Right,
zoning
but,
board on board,
Mm-hmm.
John Mativier on board,
Many
us
eyes on the
board,
paper.
selectmen
Sorry?
on board,
Many eyes on the paper.
right.
Well, that's why we try, I mean, the problem is everybody's meeting schedules are different. We did go to the zoning board. We figured that was just a courtesy to them. Technically, they don't have any role in this whatsoever, but that and their questions were good questions and well-founded. But I mean, if it doesn't get on this time, it was always next year. I mean, it's not the end of the world.
And you never know, we might have a fall town meeting.
I would never do it at a fall town meeting.
Yeah, there's.
Nobody shows up to those.
No,
That's a
it's-
fixed group. So,
yeah.
That's a one issue.
So I have a motion to
You
send
made
it
a
to
motion,
selectmen.
you made a motion to send it to the selectmen to, and we're gonna take a vote to what that vote is for, to recommend or not recommend. Seconded by Tim?
No, I'm not
And-
gonna recommend, I'm just gonna send it to selectmen. We had our hearing, I'm just sending it to selectmen, I'm not recommending anything.
Sending what? We have to send a
The
report.
bylaw.
We
No,
have to
the-
make a report.
Well, my report is that I don't know, I'm not going to vote one way or the other
Okay,
until,
so you're gonna abstain.
yeah.
Okay, so,
Honestly, I feel I have to do that too.
So there's no, there won't be any other further hearings on this, as you guys are through with this.
Unfortunately, because
yeah, you don't have the time, right? You don't have the time.
this needs to be the end of all the public hearings for
Why do you
amendments.
think we jammed so many in one night? This is it. Tick-tock, we're
It
done.
wouldn't have helped because there's just too many unanswered questions in my mind.
Yeah.
I never saw this, what did you call it, thing that,
The agreement.
guideline? Yeah, guidelines. I mean, I haven't seen any of that, and it's hard for me to wrap.
No, I understand, it's very
get all
complicated,
warm
it's very
and fuzzy about
complicated.
something.
you know,
As
I
a
agree
matter of
with you.
fact, you know, that, it probably would need to be presented. These are the guidelines, this is the whole context, and this is our layer of it. This is the town's layer of it. All the rest of it is DHCD. Or whatever model is most easily communicated. Because as you were saying, Frank, I mean, this is pretty dense
And
pudding.
Frank, know what can happen right now is the board could continue the public hearing on this, so you can keep going with what you have.
Right, it
Or you
just-
can end this public hearing and have it referred to the selectmen or not, but then you need to start a new public hearing to open this up again.
I think we should just continue it if you
Yeah,
guys
if
are
you can
okay with
continue,
that.
I don't have any problem, I'm not, I mean, I know we got off to a little bit of a late jump here.
I mean, kudos to
And
you
I-
guys for the whole concept, it's
Absolutely.
awesome.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure it's workable, it's just, there's a few little tweaks that need to be.
No, if it doesn't get on June, it gets on a year from June, that's fine with me.
But I
would like to-
agree, if we can continue it rather than come back in and go,
Oh, yeah, let's
start
continue.
from scratch
That-
again.
that way,
To
as we
tighten up
get
what
information.
questions were asked tonight,
Right.
and to bring so you have a time to review the regulations, the guidelines.
Right, and that John Mativier's happy with it too, because he's
Yeah, I'd be
gonna
happy
play
to
a
sit
part
down
in
and talk
this.
with John.
Everybody that's gonna play a part in
One,
this has to
one
be on
question
board.
about continuing it though, if
You-
we
what are we
continue it,
continuing?
then you have to abstain again.
I'm missing something here, guys,
Oh.
and it's very late. Bear with me, I'm very sorry.
That's true.
My understanding is this hearing is about a bylaw amendment for the annual town meeting.
Okay.
All right,
I'm missing something.
yeah.
Well, it is.
Rob
You-
brought
you-
What
up-
are we continuing?
You continue the wind energy facilities to June 11th because you wanted to hear more on it. You couldn't meet it.
Oh, yeah, but we did that because we know it's dead. Sorry.
But if you
That ain't
have
going
plans to
anywhere.
do it next year, you have to have a 6-month timeframe there before the date of the annual town meeting,
No,
right, for a hearing. So
What?
you have to repeat it.
Why don't we close the hearing, and then next time, when we have more information, we'll reopen the hearing, and then that
Withdraw your
we can
motion.
keep it open. Because then Rob will be on it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Withdraw
Rob's a
the
new
motion.
member, and since he wasn't here for the first meeting,
Well,
he's,
this is up to you guys, this is your, I mean, I, like I said, I'm speaking for myself. If it doesn't get on this year, we're gonna be back for next year. If you can keep this open and that makes the door easier for us to get through the next time, I'm all for that.
Tim brings up a good point. If you close it now and you re-advertise and restart the public hearing process, you can have the 5th member involved.
and I think that's pretty important.
Yeah, I do too.
But you've gained a lot of insight and opinions, and you can keep coordinating.
agree with
And
you.
you can
Learning
keep feeding us
experience.
Nothing
information,
else.
just because we're not gonna, like,
An
just 'cause the-
information will come in front of you and say, this is where we are
Right,
now.
as you get, like, the, you know, this,
Yeah, well,
you
I
can,
mean,
you can send that.
I'm a little disappointed by it, but if that's the way it's gotta be, it's the way it's gotta be. I mean, I can understand it's very dense, it is very complicated.
What kind of meeting would you guys wanna see? In other words, do you wanna see a show and tell? Do you wanna just have a ton of documents?
I wanna,
Oh, yeah, a ton of documents, that's a great idea.
Well, that's what it is, believe me.
I'd like to see 2 parallel tracks. One that changes the ZBA, the existing ZBA bylaw,
Well, we can't,
accessory apartment, and a separate one.
we don't have anything to do with that, though.
no, we
That's-
don't, why do you
that-
wanna do that?
That's the.
Because there's no enforcement, there's no monitoring, there's no.
Well, no, they're saying there is monitoring, there is all.
No, I'm talking about for the.
Right, I mean, the
the
problem.
in-laws, the in-law apartment.
Yeah,
Well,
we-
that's the
There's
ZBA's
no tracking.
problem.
Right,
They're not, they could care less about that, that's not what they're.
So it
going
sounds
to do.
like you could come forward with
That's
a
not our
brand new
bailiwick.
separate individual
That's
bylaw.
not what they're trying to do, at least. it could
Right,
be two
but
separate
since you're
types.
tagging it onto it, but
Well, I
at
mean, the
any rate.
perfect,
Not really
is it
Can I,
good, you want the
can
good
I
or the
clarify
perfect?
one thing?
It's
Can I
either
just
or or
clear
neither.
up one thing for the record, please? Tilly, did you withdraw that motion
Oh, I guess so.
to recommend? Okay.
I don't know.
Someone wanna make a recommendation?
I thought at least we could find out from town council whether this is appropriate. You know, that's what I thought.
Let's get some more information.
There's
before
not
we
enough
spend
time
money.
to
Yeah.
get town council's
not cheap.
opinion on this and the board to review it before town meeting.
Would anyone like to close the hearing, make a motion to
I'll
close the
make a
hearing?
motion to close the.
Tim moves. Tilly's was withdrawn.
Yeah.
Tim
second
moves
Tim's.
to close the hearing.
You're not gonna vote to move it along?
We can do that after. Tim moves to close the hearing.
We gotta close
Seconded
it so
by-
Rob can be
Seconded by-
part of it.
by Bob. Bob seconds. All in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Alright.
Aye.
Abstain.
All-
I'm not sure you wanna close it, though.
Why'd you just
can
vote
open
aye then?
it.
Because
It
it's
clo- it
10:30
closed
at
and it
night,
doesn't-
we've
it
never
is-
made a good decision after 9:30?
That's right.
Right, yeah, that's why I wanna move the things going.
So when do the selectmen open up the warrant for the 2015
Hey,
meeting?
excuse me 1 minute, please. Excuse me 1 minute, please. Motion was made, seconded, and voted, to my knowledge. I wanna vote it again, because obviously you don't wanna vote to close it.
No.
All those in favor of closing the hearing, please say aye.
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 No.
All opposed?
Me.
All abstaining? Motion carries to close the hearing.
The
3
caveat in the,
2 to 1.
in the minutes can be that we want Rob, we're closing it primarily so that Rob can,
Right.
the new member, and potentially another new member.
Would anybody like to make a motion to recommend this to, we have to make a report to the selectmen.
You do?
They
You do.
asked us
And,
to.
and the report
We
can be,
we can
the
shun
planning
them if
board
we'd like.
can't make a recommendation, the planning board can recommend. The planning board is unable at this time to recommend to the selectmen.
Planning board needs more information before we can recommend to the
Is
selectmen.
that your motion?
Yes.
Okay. Tim makes a motion that the report states that the planning board needs more information to make a recommendation. Does that
I mean,
summarize it?
I'm all for it, and I hate to delay it, but I
Does-
just,
That's fine. Does that mean that next time we come in, Rob has a vote on?
yes.
Yeah.
Well, we
and
won't be
that's the
back
idea.
now until
Is
next.
there a second for
next
that? I didn't
fall,
even hear a
right?
second. I didn't even hear a second
You
for
got a
that, so.
second.
You got a
Yeah,
second
yeah.
from you?
Sure.
We have to advertise.
Bob
it again
seconds? Okay.
And start it over again.
All in favor of sending reports which states that the planning board needs more information, say aye.
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 Abstain.
Motion carries, 4,
Last abstention.
0 to 1.
So, just so I'm clear, this means this goes to the selectmen, they won't put it on the warrant because they don't have a recommendation from the planning board. So-
No, their
It- it's
decision
on
is
the warrant
entirely
now.
theirs.
Right, but they can move it on or off the warrant.
Right.
Okay, so they'll probably move it off
The warrant been closed?
No, what they
Well,
would
it's
do is
still open,
probably
but-
pass it over at town
The
meeting.
warrant is closed.
It's a placeholder right now.
Right.
Okay, so,
But
but
they can open it to
they can
remove
open
it.
the warrant and, they can
You just
open,
can't add it.
right, but they can take it off.
Right.
Well, you got some selectmen are on the trust, so maybe they'll go for
You
it.
got a selectman sitting right here.
Just for your information, the
That's
selectmen
different,
are
though.
meeting tomorrow night.
I know,
in
but
the
they're in the
basement
same-
meeting at
No, they're
6
not.
to discuss.
No, they're not.
Okay,
But I'm still confused here. How do we then move this forward? How do we get you guys to the level that you're familiar with it like we are? So you
When
can say,
when you answer all the questions, I
More
guess.
information?
Yeah.
right.
I
but I mean,
think,
it-
I think there's
We
also
need,
a
we need
question.
procedures, how, and who is gonna be the town? Is it gonna be the selectmen, is it gonna be Steve,
The-
Mike Farrell, I mean, who is it that, all these things need to at least
Well,
have
it's
a
like I said,
proposal.
it's in the guidelines. If
It
you
is,
read, when
yeah.
you read them, you'll know for the next time we go
And
through
to answer
it.
your
Public
question,
hearing.
If you
Paul,
get Howard the
bottom line
guidelines,
is-
he can
He's got
email.
them, you just handed them to you.
how do we get up to speed on solar facilities? How do we get up to speed on medical marijuana
But that's-
dispensary facilities?
so we
It's a
can come in-
learning process that just happens.
Would you like to schedule some time to educate you on this process then?
Maybe when it's not so busy.
Well, no, I understand that, but I mean, that would be something like maybe early next fall or something like that.
Informal meetings, I mean, schedule them with Howard, and I'm sure the board would be happy to listen to it.
Yeah, I'm sure that you can organize the information in
Yeah.
a way that it can be presented in summary, and then you can dive down
Yep.
to the appropriate level, because that's what it sounds like that's the level of information that we need.
Well, I think we've got a sense for where your questions are. And the problem with any type of broad-ranging thing like this is it's so wide-ranging that no matter what we gave you, you're gonna have more questions for us. I mean, that's
Well,
just the
then-
nature of this beast.
Right.
Believe me,
We
it's
just
very.
gotta be careful, because the public hearing's been closed, so
Okay.
just.
Well, I'm just,
Okay.
I'm just talking about going forward
Yeah.
with.
Right.
Yeah, but
With
how
I
to
the
do
think,
huge-
it.
with
I
how
think
we-
going forward, you've got the concerns of the board, the questions that need to be answered, you're gonna wait to hear from DHCD,
The concerns
And-
with John Lativier too.
and you can
I'd
meet
be
with
happy
John
to sit down with John.
informally,
That would,
and then
that
you come
weighs
back to
heavily
the
on
board
me.
with the notice public hearing, so it's all on the record, because it's a zoning change.
And if,
And just have a meeting once every month and a half or so, and you can
How-
equally pace yourself getting ready for the next town meeting.
just speaking for myself as one board member, what I would find very helpful is that in this presentation of information, so you have these points 1 through 10 that you're trying to make, and then there are questions that come up around them, and that there's a recording, a summary of the question, the answer, and it's been understood, checked off, and so that what happens for someone like myself is I'll lose the picture of something that was talked about months ago, focusing on the details, and when I have a written record of this has been covered, it's still outstanding, this has been covered, it's been addressed, that helps me a lot.
That's kind of what I try to do with the questions from the ZBA.
And I saw that, and that's very
That
helpful.
is really
But that, and that was just, that's helpful, but in more time to look at it.
But like the definition of the local project administrator.
Thank you, guys, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thanks
it.
for the opportunity, the time.
Yeah, no
to-
Thank you.
Okay.
Nope.
You have a nice time.
Thank you again.
But before you
It's a nice
close
time.
the planning board meeting, you just need to move the new business agenda to the next. Way out of Harmony Lane.
So, yeah.
It wasn't a
Okay,
public
it's new
hearing. but-
business, not public hearing.
But just,
Yeah, just do it administratively.
alright.
Motion to adjourn. Bob, second.
Second.
Tim, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. I got to say that tonight, yeah! And 9,
That's
what is
something
it?
he can vote on.
10, exactly, 10:25. Good night, everybody, and lucky if you see me next time.
Yes.
This is getting